Well, last session that we had finally made it. I think that was the session where we had just made it to Kragadan, finally, after all this time. And you had gone to the Guardians. I guess we started at the lava lake, actually, a little bit before Kragadan proper. And you spotted some irregularities in the lava flow and decided to not investigate the extremely hot lava. And I decided I'd be gracious and show you what you missed, which were some really awesome magma elemental tokens. But you decided to just skirt around the cavern, go up the walkway up to the big door, which led you to a chamber that had 2 dead dwarves that had come back as... Oh, I'm not going to be able to do the word again. Einherji. A Norse word, I think, for basically they came back after death to continue their defense of their homeland. And you negotiated with them. They let Oran in because he's a dwarf, and the others of you were not dwarves, so they refused your entry until Oran came back with the royal archivist and a half a dozen defenders. And they all decided to hear you out, check if any of you are evil, and then they let you in. And eventually, Carburton came back from a meeting with the prince, saying that in a couple days' time, you would be led to a meeting with the Even-Handed Synod, and they would be pronouncing. They would hear out your story, and then they would figure out what the next steps would be, pretty much. And for the rest of that first day in Kragadan, you guys lived it up. You went to like the hot spring sauna. You went to the fancy clothing shop and got a ridiculous amount of money's worth of jewels and fancy clothes and signet rings. And then you went to the high-end restaurant in the center of the city and got quite a bit of a feast there. And I think that's where we pretty much ended that last session. And between sessions, we've all had time to kind of figure out the shopping side of things, selling items and buying items. Basically, you guys have 2 to 3 days at this point, I think 3 days pretty much, until your meeting with the Synod. So during that time, if there's anything you wanted to do in particular, you could bring that up. Or if there weren't any particular special bits, we could talk about maybe what you bought and kind of say over the next few days you went out and found these items, and if there's anything in particular you wanted to highlight, we could do that, and then we could kind of jump to that meeting. But I didn't know if anybody wanted to do anything special beyond that first day of lavishness.
No, but I would like to start 2 items to be commissioned, so you can start that now. We can start the timer.
All right.
Enhancing his shield. I want to give it's a +2 right now, and I'd like to add light fortification and another +1. So if I'm not mistaken on the math, that should cost 12,000, Jace? Is that right?
Yeah, so a +2 shield is 4,000. This would be the equivalent of a +4 shield, so the difference between 4 and 16 is 12. So it would take 12 days.
Yep, and then he's also going to commission a belt.
Commission a belt. Okay.
Yeah, which will take 10 days. We talked about it earlier.
Yep. Were you going to say something, Justin, or was that somebody else I heard?
Oh, I was just going to say I was going to have a additional +1 to my shield for an ability.
Did you have an ability in mind, or just...
I don't, because I don't know what they are. I was going to roll it randomly just to see.
you love rolling randomly.
So
I really do.
I mean, that's fine. You can do that. I'll just say that there are a number of special abilities that are kind of class specific and would be non-beneficial.
Yeah, I saw that like champion. I saw that.
Yeah.
I was like, okay,
So,
that ain't really gonna help me.
I mean, maybe you could look through, find a couple that you liked, and then roll amongst those to make sure you didn't get anything weird. But yeah, you could do that. That's fine. But yeah, getting that upgraded, and it was already, what was it, a +1, +2, +1? So that would only take 3 days to do. So you'd actually have that pretty much by the meeting, probably almost close to it. But yeah, you can look through those if you want at some point.
Yeah.
And just tell me what you're thinking. Anything cool that Kieran or Jessup are going to buy?
So I'm flavoring these differently, but they are the sandals of quick reaction, but they are not sandals because that would be absurd.
They're Crocs.
They're not Crocs.
The
They
Crocs
are
of quick reaction.
no. They are boots of quick reaction. So I bought those, and I am commissioning my glaive to be improved from a +1 to a +2, and I also am commissioning a deep red sphere ion stone. So those are my things. I also did buy an amulet of mighty fists +1 so that my natural attacks are better, and then I did get a steadfast gut stone just to have.
Are you getting a full deep red sphere iron stone, or are you getting like a cracked version?
Nope, the full one.
Ooh, so you're gonna get basically the belt but slotless.
Yeah, yep. Basically. Yeah. Because I have the belt of dwarven kind, which I kind of like, and I didn't want to replace that, so I figured the iron stone would be a decent replacement for that.
The sandal boots, they're just normal boots, and these sandals are just tied underneath them.
No, they are not sandals. I hate when they have stuff like that. When, like, if you look up the boots of the cat, it's like these high-heeled shoes. I'm like, nobody's wearing those out adventuring. That's ridiculous.
Do not judge what Jessup wears.
That's probably just the marketing. The first iteration of the items were marketed that way, but realistically, they could put the magic onto any sort of thing, I imagine.
Yeah, that's what I'm
but
thinking.
Whenever you look through the catalog of magic items, that's the one that pops up. That's the marketing version.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I'm doing. And then I did buy some mundane things, but they're not really important.
Cool. Jessup, how about you? I know between Jessup and Kieran, we all rolled for items. One of you was extremely lucky, and the other one was not so much. So Jessup, what all did you get?
So Jessup got a cool hat. So he got his dervish sikke. So, and it looks sikke too, let me tell you. So he's got a cool hat, gives some pretty neat bonuses. So for you others there, it increases his Inspire Courage and Inspire Competence bonus by 1. So as long as I have the hat on, you guys can add a +1 to those bonuses now. A couple other cool flavored things. Gives me some increase to my Bardic Knowledge. And then, because I didn't have it made for me, I just bought the one that was existing. It just gives me a generic bonus to Engineering. Jessup also got some Gloves of Arcane Striking. So when I do my Arcane Strike ability, I can add some cool bonuses to do a little AoE damage or some aiding. And I got a quiver, an efficient quiver, so it can hold more arrows, because Jessup is a little tight on space here. I think that was about it. A couple other small knickknacks, but basically the sikke was the big one that I was hoping for. Didn't think I was going to get it. And it was in stock, surprisingly enough. So.
Yeah. And I encourage everyone to look up what that hat looks like.
I posted it in Facebook. It is a Turkish cap. Jessup looks sweet.
Sikke.
Jessup is now 6 inches taller with his cap on.
It's like a fez, but the big version.
It's like a fez.
So yeah. So all of that shopping could be done over those days. Yeah.
Oh, I forgot. Also, Jessup is having somebody commissioned to increase his short bow from a +1 to a +2, so he has given that up. I don't know how many days that is, but he'll just do that. Sure.
So a +1 weapon is 2,000. A +2 weapon is
6,000.
6? Well, the difference in the difference between them would be 6. So it would be 6 days. Yeah. And what were you saying, Justin?
Oh, so the items that we had talked about. So the Ring of Protection. Did you already roll for that?
I rolled for all three: the ring,
okay,
the symbol, and the gloves. Yes. And I think the symbol and gloves are in stock.
Yes, but the ring was not. Okay. Yes. So
after 7 days, we can re-roll any of these items after 7 days, and we can see if they come in, or you could just commission them and guaranteeingly get it after however many days it is, but that's up to you.
No, that's all right. So I'll get the malleable symbol and the healer's gloves, and then the shield. I think I'm gonna do Defiant.
Defiant is the one that you have to pick a creature type, right? And you are picking ooze.
Actually, that's the part that I'm gonna do random just for fun.
Oh, interesting.
I love random. So let's see what I get here. All right, according to the chart, a 47 is humanoids. So that's not bad. Which is a huge chunk of this chart because you go by the Bane chart.
Yeah. Humanoids is a big.
So humanoids pick one subtype. So I mean, I guess I'll just go with Duragar. No, why don't I just go with? Why would I attack elves?
I mean, realistically, it would be
goblinoid, right? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I'm just gonna do goblinoid. It seems like that's what it should have been anyway. So
it's funny that you rolled and then got goblinoid.
I know, right? Cool. And then just the malleable symbol and the gloves.
All right. So yeah, like I said, over the next 2-3 days, you guys can kind of scour out Kragadan and do any other touristy stuff and go to the various shops until you find some of these items or find people who could create these items if you needed and couldn't find one in stock. Is there anything in particular that you guys wanted to do otherwise, or do you want to just kind of time skip up to that meeting?
I don't think there's anything super special that Kieran would do. He would probably make multiple visits to the spa just to enjoy himself after the weeks and, I don't know, maybe months that they've been out on the road. But I think other than that, he's really just, I know we have to have an escort, so he would probably be super annoying and always want an escort, just walking around the city kind of marveling at the architecture and the fact that it's all underground and how it's set up and how everything works in the dwarven society, kind of comparing it to his knowledge of the cities that are primarily human and how they run. And he's definitely trying out the dwarven bars and taverns to try the different whiskeys and ales and whatever they might have.
You're a menace to society.
Why? I am furthering the economy. Thank you very much.
I would say, far from being annoyed by your requests, Carburton, who would probably be your escort, would be elated to just lead you around and tell you everything about everything. And I would wager it's probably more likely that Kieran gets annoyed by the amount of in-depth information that he'd be able to glean from.
I can see, and I don't know, Sarah, if you were planning on Kieran going along, but I was thinking as well that, between the shopping that Jessup has, that he would just want to mingle with as many people and go around and learn as much as he can, like a tourist, because, what else are you going to do for so many days? So probably that's something where he would tag along. And I think he enjoyed the spa the other day as well. So if Kieran is accepted, liked that, he probably would go around with you for those days.
Yeah, I imagine Kieran, he's not mingling perhaps unless they get to the tavern, and then he'll mingle with the roughneck dwarves or whatever that are in there. But I think if their guide, what was his name again?
So normally you would be led around by the Royal Archivist Carburton Lightbrand.
Carburton, okay. Yeah, with Carburton, if he just goes off on his speeches about Kragadan, like Kieran would probably just zone out and not really pay attention and just be taking in the sights and scenes around him and just letting him go off and talk and not really be paying attention.
Yep. Okay.
I remember you saying that there was a Pathfinder Society presence here in Kragadan. Is that true?
I can't remember if there's so much of a Pathfinder Society presence as there is just that the prince is very interested and is a member of the Pathfinder Society. I don't believe that they have a lodge here.
Right. There's no lodge. Okay. Is there
they'd be welcome, but given the siege and whatnot, they really wouldn't have them,
That's fine. Is there any, where does he store all of his information? Is there a public library? Is there a vault of information apart from Vault Way or something like that?
There would be public libraries. Depending on the information that you're looking for, you might not be able to find them there. It just depends on what you're looking for. They have a royal archives, but you'd need permission to get in there.
Yeah, if he gets permission to go there, he'd like to go there. And he's not looking for anything in particular. He's just looking for history of Kragadan. He has an academic interest. It's nothing with ulterior motives.
Yes, you could find general stuff.
I would certainly hope that the royal archivist would be able to get permission to go into the royal archives.
Well, he definitely could, but the issue is getting you guys in.
Well, I mean, Kieran doesn't want to, but I'm just thinking that if there was one person that wanted to, he probably, if the royal archivist vouched for him, they probably would be more willing to let him go in.
I'd say that you likely wouldn't be able to gain access to the royal archives specifically until after the meeting with the synod. Kind of the same like how you're not given access to the surface of Kragadan during the siege until the meeting. But that is definitely something that you could request during the meeting. And once they have cleared you of any residual suspicion. If there's nothing else anybody wanted to cover, then we'll just say that those 3 days go by. As we said, maybe Gideon's going to some of the public libraries to see what he can find there. Kieran's touring around. You guys are all looking for those shops and whatnot, maybe spending each day having that lavish treatment, given that you have been kind of out in the sticks for 2 months now in world. So eventually, on that third day, you wake up and you know that this is the day that you have the meeting. You get around, everything is... You probably wear your nice, new, fancy clothes, I imagine, to make yourselves look super professional and presentable. And Carbert and Lightbrand actually comes to where you are staying. And again, you originally were taken to Trud's stronghold, but he then got permission to move you to the Great Hammer Bastion, and that's where you've actually been staying each night, is down here a little bit south. So the Great Hammer Bastion is where you've been staying. So on that day, Royal Archivist Carbert and Lightbrand, he escorts you not to the traditional tribunal, which you might have imagined that you'd be taken to, but rather he takes you to a grand feasting hall inside of Great Hammer Bastion. So you don't even really leave the building. You just kind of walk down the hallway to the other side of the building to the grand feasting hall. And once inside, you see a table lavishly set with food and drink. And on the one side of this table, there are 4 empty chairs. And on the other side, once Carburton takes his seat, there are 4 impeccably dressed dwarves, 2 male, 2 female. There are several guards that line the outer walls of this grand feasting hall, and they stand sentinel over the proceedings. After you guys get situated at the table, sitting side by side on the one side of the table, the dwarf at the far right side stands and speaks. "Greetings and welcome to our sky citadel of Kragadan. Though your visit comes at a suspicious time and from a suspicious point of entry, we dwarves aren't ones to skimp on hospitality. I hope your stay has been pleasant thus far. I apologize for the restrictions we had to place on you. I hope you understand our reasoning. I'm sure you would be doubtful after finding someone in your cellar without warning as well, especially if your house was under siege." He kind of chuckles a bit before continuing. "My name is Gorm Greathammer, 3rd Prince of Kragadan and first seat of the Even-Handed Synod. Beside me is my sister and exemplar of Trud, Thramira Greathammer. With us also is the overseer of Kragadan's trade and clan relations, Lady Hikal Balatam, and of course you are familiar with Royal Archivist Carbarton Lightbrand." He sits back down before continuing. "Now, it seems you have quite the tale to tell us of your arrival here at our home, and I, for one, am eager to hear it. So, if you would be so kind, would you please start at the very beginning?" So, a couple things here. First up, I'll allow either the party as a whole or each of you individually to roll a knowledge local, knowledge religion, or knowledge nobility check to identify the members of the even-handed synod that sit before you.
First off, I want to say I feel like what we're about to do is like the Pathfinder equivalent of taking a test in school. It's like the GM's like, all right, how much do you remember of the last 3 books that we played? All right. So you said nobility, local, or religion?
Yes.
All right. I will roll a knowledge of nobility and get a 27.
I rolled a knowledge religion and got a 26.
Got a knowledge religion. Got a 12.
I will do a local, I guess. Oh, crab baskets.
Oh,
Knowledge
no.
religion. Oh, my sickies cover my eyes. I can't see.
Amazing. Amazing.
So, with those rolls of 27, 26, the 16 is enough to give you information. You probably already knew most of this about the Royal Archivist, but the nobility gets you more on Prince Gorm, and the religion gets you more on Exemplar Thramira, and you learn a little bit about Lady Hikal. So, again, Royal Archivist Carberton Lightbrand, he is, in gamey terms, a lawful neutral wizard 10. You know that he was recently appointed to his position only 3 years ago. And again, he mentioned how his father had sort of disappeared and left him to get to his position without the standard procedure. He is responsible for maintaining the vast troves of lore available in the Sky Citadel's Royal Archives and in Vault Way. He has a particular affinity for the history of surface-dwelling nations due to the fact that he lacked the opportunity to travel the surface like most royal archivists before him. Prince Gorm Greathammer, you've, over your time in the city, probably talking to just random passersby or shop merchants, you know that he is a neutral Bard 7 Pathfinder Chronicler 2. He is the 3rd child of Kragadan's king and a member of the Pathfinder Society. After his father's self-exile, Gorm compromised and took a seat on the Even-Handed Synod rather than take the mantle of king for himself. He craves the thrill of adventure and exploration more than anything, but understands the duties that come with his lineage. Exemplar Thramira Greathammer, you know that she is a lawful good paladin of Trud, 11. So she is the most martially capable of the 4 here. She is the highest ranking member of the Church of Trud and the 2nd child of Kragadan's king. Her position as Exemplar prevents her from taking on a leadership role beyond her position on the Even-Handed Synod. She is analytical and even-tempered. She is also a strategist whose primary challenge is keeping the militaristic elements of her faith stable and focused during the siege. She was also one of the few members of the Even-Handed Synod to not immediately demand Multhuni blood for the intrusion into the vaults, much to the amazement of others. And finally, Lady Hikal Balatum. She is a lawful neutral aristocrat 10, so very much not martially focused by any means. She is the most junior of the present members of the Even-Handed Synod, though she commands immense power in the Sky Citadel. She maintains various commerce and trade agreements between clans of Kragadan. She also presides over trade agreements between external powers, such as Kragadan's exports to Druma, Nirmathos, and formerly Multhune. And rumor has it that she has been especially interested in proving Multhune innocent of the trespass, as she is eager to see the siege end and full trade return to Kragadan. So that's kind of the general understanding that you have of these 4 particular members of the Even-Handed Synod that you are faced with. Now, as for what Prince Gorm had said, he asked to start at the very beginning. Basically, how this hearing is going to work is that you are not necessarily expected to defend your arrival at Kragadan. Instead, the Even-Handed Synod wants to hear an entire recounting of your journey up to now. Your story will be divided into 4 sections. First is the fall of Phaendar, then rescuing the Chernosardo, then defending Longshadow, and finally all the events leading up to your arrival in Kragadan. each of these 4 sections is divided into 3 parts, beginning, middle, and end, just like a standard story. Except for the 4th part, which has a beginning and middle, your arrival in Kragadan, the beginning and middle, and then the final section would just be an overall conclusion. So still 3 sections, but not a beginning, middle, and end, because there's technically no end yet. So you will make 1 skill check for each part. So 3 checks per story section. So the Fall of Phaendar, you'll have 1 skill check for the beginning of the story, 1 for the middle, and 1 for the end of that book, basically. You can use any of the following skills, but each skill can only be used once per section. So you could roll an appraise check if you present some trophy from your tale to corroborate your story. You could do a bluff. You could do a diplomacy and intimidate. You could use a knowledge check as applicable, a profession check as applicable, like a profession soldier for defending Long Shadow would work. You could do a perform as applicable, a sense motive, or a spellcraft by presenting an acquired magic item. Technically, you can also roll handle animal, but none of you have animal companions, so I omitted that one. But yeah, there are 9 different skills that you can choose to roll, but only 1 per section. So you'll have to choose 3 of those 9. Each of you will take charge of recounting 1 section of the story. The Even-Handed Synod wants to hear from all of you. So each of you will have to decide which section you will be in charge of recounting. The rest of you can attempt to aid, to enhance the details when not recounting your own section, though. Well-described sections may gain some additional bonuses. And just so you are aware, if you speak Dwarven, you gain a +2 bonus to all of your checks.
Yay! So 3
What
of
if
us.
you are Dwarven?
Right. Great.
Shouldn't they just believe me?
Kieran takes off his pants and hands the belt over to Gideon during his section of the story.
Why do I have to take off my pants to hand over the belt?
Dude, wait. Kieran, this is how things work with a 36 bluff.
So I have a set DC for each section that all of your checks will be up against. I won't tell you which sections are harder than others, but I will say just some of the sections are harder than others. So again, there are 4 sections, and each of you will be in charge of 1. So how do you think you're going to go about this?
I will say Oran should take the first section.
Yeah.
Obviously.
He's the only one that encountered those events firsthand.
It potentially makes sense for maybe Jessup to take on the second section there, talking all about the Rangers being a Ranger.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, and then I think either Gideon or Kieran would make sense for the defense of Long Shadow because they both have soldier backgrounds.
I
So
think
I'm fine.
Gideon tried to snipe that one.
Yeah, I tried to snipe it.
Okay,
I
that's fine.
think Gideon would like to handle the siege because that's what he was most involved with.
I mean, and I think that, Kieran, you had started us off really with the trying to do the diplomatizing with Qual there leading up, and then you're successfully giving us the dark vision. So without you, we would not be here. Many, many times.
Fair
many
enough.
times this book. You would also not be here without us many, many times.
But the siege, you said, is the 3rd part. So the 4th
Yes.
part is the Darklands.
Yes, the 4th part would be everything after the siege leading up to your entry to Kragadan, and then just an overall conclusion.
I leave that to Kieran also because he's been here the longest, as far as with the current group. I think maybe Jessup was not even here as long.
Yeah, Kieran is the most veteran by probably maybe a couple weeks compared to Jessup. So, all right, if everybody is okay with that lineup, we can go into this. So again, Prince Gorm, he asks to start from the very beginning. So,
Are we allowed to use our campaign notes? This is all off the cuff.
I'd like to see how you go off the cuff. If you run into issues, maybe we can open something. But
You
I'd
actually
I'd
want
like
us to regale the story?
Yeah, do your best to, in character, how your character perceived those events. Just what you saw happen. And you can try to play it up and exaggerate things if you want. That's why there's stuff like bluff there, if you wanted to kind of exaggerate some of the things. It was thousands upon thousands rather than hundreds upon hundreds of enemies type of thing. So just go how you think your character would remember those events. So, Section 1 is Trail of the Hunted. That is the title of Book 1. This section encompasses the events from the doomed defense of Phaendar, the retreat into the Fangwood, the taking of Mistholm, and the final battle against Camp Redjaw, the defeat of Sergeant Scarvinius, and, of course, the death of Volus. So, go ahead, Oran, and begin the tale.
In my head, I hear like a typewriter's noise.
Right.
Trail of the hunted.
I guess I'll take the start here. We kind of started. The tale really starts in the small town of Phaendar. We were there for a small festival that they have every year, and there were several people in attendance. There was a druid, a mercenary captain, myself, and we also had a barbarian woman, that were all in attendance. We had done several activities throughout the day at the festival, and we were enjoying a pint at the local tavern when all of a sudden a ballista bolt crashed in through the door. Charging outside, we saw that there was a giant stone tower that had materialized seemingly out of nowhere, and hobgoblins were pouring from it, attacking the townspeople and raiding all the various houses and homes and shops throughout the town. We tried to rally a defense, but didn't go quite well. We managed to rescue a few dozen survivors from the town, and we fled into the woods there. Unfortunately, one of the companions from that day, the mercenary captain, he stayed behind. We had tried to blow a bridge that leads into Phaendar to try and buy ourselves more time to escape into the Fangwood, but we failed, unfortunately, to destroy the bridge. So he stayed behind to buy everybody more time, and but we did make it into the Fangwood. Several prominent people from the town died. Father Nolan, for instance, which is Jessup's father. He passed away, unfortunately. But we managed to make it out with Auburn the Green, who had spent some time with us in the Fangwood and at Mistholm. Getting a little ahead of myself, but we escaped from Phaendar into the Fangwood. We spent several days trying to come up with a plan of where we could rally ourselves and really find safe positions for the town folk. We tried going to the small village of, I believe it's Gristledown, I think was the name of it. We tried to go down to Gristledown, but it had also been devastated and destroyed. We also tried going to a few different rangers locations, like a redoubt, a small hunting cabin. At each of those places, we failed to really find a safe haven for the townsfolk. Eventually, we did come across a small cave dwelling that was full of troglodytes. We really didn't know. I'll be honest here. We did not try and negotiate with the troglodytes, but in retrospect, it seemed like the Iron Fang Legion was trying to diplomatize with them anyway. So I don't know how well that would have went anyway. After clearing out the tunnels of the troglodytes and killing their, I believe she was a stone mother. I think that's what she was called. We managed to secure the cave and set up a small base there in the cave that seemed to be safe from the Iron Fang Legion. Unfortunately, the Legion was scouring the woods, trying to locate the survivors of Phaendar. In doing so, we did find several different groups, including a few other survivors that we brought back. We ended up naming the cave Mistholm, and we're using it as a base of operations. But like I said, the hobgoblins were everywhere. The barbarian that was with us, we went to a gravesite. We were beset by a war priest there and several undead hobgoblins. We went to several places throughout the Fangwood, and it seemed like everywhere we turned around there were hobgoblins waiting for us. Eventually we did make our way to a hobgoblin base called Camp Redjaw, I think was the name of it, where there seemed to be a commander. I will reiterate that we did try going back to Phaendar after the fact. It did not go well. When we got there, we could see that they were basically enslaving and murdering all of the surviving members of Phaendar, of the surviving citizens of Phaendar, and we were grossly outnumbered by the hundreds, and the stone tower was still there. There was nothing we could do to liberate the city, or the town rather. But getting back to the camp that we found, there seemed to be a hobgoblin leader named Scarvinius, who was leading the hobgoblins, and we tried to lure him out of his camp that he had there, unsuccessfully. We did manage to get some of the troops that were there because we were grossly outnumbered. We did manage to get a few of them out to lessen the numbers, but in the end, we did have to engage him out in the open. And unfortunately, the druid that we had with us had an animal companion that had been with us from the start named Volus. He was a bear, and unfortunately, Scarvinius managed to murder the bear Volus. But we did successfully end up taking out him and the camp there.
All right. So now what I would like you to do, you summed up all three of those sections, all three of those parts of that section there. And
it's hard to remember a lot of that stuff.
For sure.
You did really well. I was like, I missed that part. I'm glad he mentioned that.
There's others I didn't mention, like fighting the mites and fighting the big wolf and stuff like that. I didn't mention all that because it didn't really seem pertinent, but yeah. Or the centaur.
Right, yeah. So, what I'll say here is, so just so you're all aware, any like minor details that you forget, we're gonna like hand wave and like say, because again, this is over a conversation. You're all eating here. You're all at a feast, so there's back and forth here that would be going on, and this whole meeting would probably take maybe 2 or so hours, depending on how much detail they would ask questions about. But so we're just gonna roll checks to kind of hand wave some of the back and forth there, and then I'll explain how the synod reacts to your telling. So, Justin, you'll have 3 checks. Again, you can choose 3 out of these 9. You can only make 1 at a time, but you can roll 1 per part. So, appraise if you have any sort of trophy from a particular part with you. Bluff, diplomacy, intimidate, an applicable knowledge, an applicable profession, an applicable perform, a sense motive, or a spellcraft if you have a magic item from one of those parts.
Okay. Would any of us have, for instance, I know there was I mentioned that they were trying to diplomatize with the troglodytes. Does the current party have the missive that was sent to the troglodytes? Like there was like a letter or whatever, right, that went to the troglodytes that was like,
right,
hey guys, we want to be friends. Do we have that letter on us?
Yeah, if you look at the handouts, I think you are referring to handout 1.2. Salutations, Children of Stone. Yes.
Yes. So do we have that? There it is. Yeah. Do we have that with us?
My guess is of the people that would have it, you're among them and the rest are gone.
Well, Kieran might, because Kieran was at Mistholm.
So The person who originally had the handy haversack was Nyari, but I think she left all of the pertinent stuff behind when she departed.
Yes.
And since then, Kieran has been tracking things. So if I imagine Kieran probably has any relevant stuff, unless there was an event that I'm missing that would explain not having those.
Not having it, right. Okay, so could I present that and then make a check?
Sure, if you wanted to present that as an appraise, yeah. That's that. It's not a trophy, but I would say that it's evidence. So
I can make an appraise check with that?
I would say since it's a written source, I'd let you do appraise, or you could even do linguistics if you wanted to, because it's a missive, so either of those.
Weirdly, my appraise is one higher than my linguistics. A 20.
I will say that for the part of this story relevant to Misthome, Kieran, you could aid. Jessup probably was at Misthome, but very briefly.
Right.
So I think I'd only really allow Kieran to attempt to aid on the Misthome section.
Yeah, because Kieran was like right after the party split up, so...
Yeah. Conveniently so.
Conveniently so. Oddly so.
So I could roll an appraise to try to aid?
Yes, for the part relevant to Misthome. Yep.
And we cannot take 10 on these.
No, you can't take 10 on aid another.
Okay, here we go. A 22. Okay. So I do aid.
So with that brings Oran's check to a 22, but he speaks Dwarven, so that would make it a 24, along with any relevant
for the
information.
Record,
yes?
Kieran would also speak in Dwarven with his belt, just to add a little oomph.
Okay.
Gideon has no idea what conversation we're having throughout this entire session.
So that is a success. So you have 2 more checks. So that was the Misthome check, and you still have 2 more that you can make out of the remaining options.
I would say maybe... Can I do like a knowledge history for the check on Phaendar? For like
I could allow a knowledge history to kind of enhance the details of Phaendar. I could allow a knowledge religion because you mentioned fighting the war priest. That would be fine with me as well if you wanted to do that. I don't know what other options you might have. A general diplomacy obviously would make sense.
It's not my greatest.
A sense motive would work to kind of gauge their reactions and then tailor your story to kind of suit how they're responding.
Okay. How about I do a sense motive for the war priest, if that's okay? And then a knowledge history for the Phaendar details.
Okay. Yep.
Here's the history. It's a 25.
25. Yep.
Okay. And the sense motive for the war priest is a 24.
24. So you rolled a 13 on the appraise on the die, an 18 on the die for the history, and a 16 on the die for the sense motive. So pretty nice rolls all around.
So even though Jessup was not part of Book 1, since he originated from Phaendar, would he be allowed to aid to enhance details of it?
That is a fair point. Yeah, I would allow that.
Also, I did mention Father
Nolan.
Yep.
Nolan.
So I could regale Father Nolan, and I mean I don't know what else would help, but he would. I would seem like Jessup could help out adding details, maybe at a penalty because he wasn't there, but Aiden would have told him because he would have asked about everything. But so I do at least get I do 8 on the history. I didn't even actually need to roll. But.
Yeah, so that would bring the knowledge history with the aid to a 27, and then because you speak Dwarven, it would be a 29, and then the sense motive is a 24. So actually, all 3 of those will succeed. So
nice.
As you tell this story, you begin with the fall of Phaendar, essentially. You see that all 4 of the dwarves of the Synod here listen keenly to the introduction of your tale. You notice a subtle emotional reaction from Thramira, who seems moved by your plight at Phaendar and your description of the loss of life there, the death and the struggle of these innocent people. As a exemplar of Trud and a focus on defense and whatnot, she resonates with that story. You notice that Carberton is lost in thought the moment you mention this onyx tower. You begin describing it coming out of the ground and the hobgoblins coming out of it. And you can see that it's like he's searching his mind, trying to match up your description with his knowledge of artifacts and items, trying to figure out precisely what might have caused this effect. And then as you move into the description of the Fangwood, your survival there. Again, Carburton, he snaps back into the conversation. He begins posing many, many questions, particularly about your encounters with the troglodytes. And you might have mentioned like the crypt you found underground, the ancient
Oh, yes.
crypt.
Yes. Yep.
Any mention of that, you see his eyes light up, and he's super interested, and he's asking like, "Oh, how old were the stones? And the statue you saw, what did it look like?" And he's just, it probably takes the next 30 minutes of conversation just to get him to calm down a little bit after you describe this location. And actually, Oran, you'd be the best to describe this because you actually are the only one who went down that tunnel leading into the Darklands.
Yeah. Yep.
So you describe all of that, and he is extraordinarily interested in that whole section of the story. And then for the battle against Camp Redjaw and Sergeant Scarvinius, the death of Volus and all of that, you see that both Thramira and Gorm are sitting on the edge of their seats at the description of that battle. And you see, I imagine that this would probably fall under Oran's section, the splitting up of the party at the very, very end there. You can see that Gorm looks disappointed hearing about the party's internal conflict. And from what you know of him, you imagine he probably romanticizes adventuring, as he hasn't been able to do it much himself. So the idea of adventurers out there living his dream and running into this issue, internal conflict, and then breaking up, you can see that a part of him is disheartened to hear that. But at the end of your tale, all three of them seemed very keen to listen. You didn't really lose anyone's attention at any point during your story. They're all following you, nodding along, posing questions, and keeping the conversation going. And you believe that you've given a pretty solid start to the tale there.
Oran sets the bar pretty high. Good luck, guys.
That brings us to Section 2, Fangs of War, the title of Book 2 of Iron Fang Invasion. This section details the exploration of the deeper parts of the Fangwood, the search for the 3 ranger forts, Nunder, Riston, and Travale, the rescue of Sirio Thessadin, and the final battle at Fort Travale and the defeat of the Black Dragon. And yes, I knew you were going to write that in, Justin. I knew it.
I didn't know if it was because I thought my mic or my headset cut out for a second. I was like, you said ranger farts.
I knew you were going to say that. So yeah, that is what this section will be going into. And did we decided Jessup would be part 2? Yes,
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Jessup, go ahead and recount the story of Book 2. Essentially, again, you have the beginning, middle, and end there. And afterwards, we will decide what your checks look like.
So, Jessup would start with, I won't go into too much detail or in character of it, but just reference him being a ranger, his son, and then traveling from Long Shadow to going to visit his old fort, Fort Riston, to try to get him recruited into the Rangers, not really knowing much about what had happened with Phaendar and the Iron Fang Legion, but as I was traveling through, trying to reach my old fort, there I was. Me and a couple other rangers that I had met on the way were ambushed by hobgoblins. We were beaten badly, they were slain, and I was left for dead. They believed I was dead, but I played possum for longer than I can remember. I was getting weak, on the verge of just dying. And then suddenly I heard some battling, and there I awoke to see. And he looks over at Kieran. He goes, Kieran, who's been with me the longest. Frampton, a very shady rogue. And then what turned out to be my nephew, Aiden, from Phaendar. We dispatched the hobgoblins, and we kind of chatted about where we came from. And then that's when I had realized what had happened to Phaendar, my home, and my father. Anywho, so I'd let them know that I was on my way traveling to the forts, and they were going as well, because figuring who would be best to fight the hobgoblins but us rangers. So they were originally going to be wanting to go to Fort Nunda, but I said, I know Fort Riston, that's where I was from, so we decided to go there. We reached Fort Riston, and we heard a lavish party going on, thinking that maybe the Rangers were in there. No, they were some Fae. A very odd assortment of different creatures. We had little, pixie fays that wanted to duel us with their little sprite rapiers. We had some satyrs that played these maddening songs of fear. We had these redcaps, these drunken hairy buggers all over the place. No rangers to be found except for our good friend, Sirio? Sirio, there. Yeah, so good I remember his name, obviously. There he was, all one leg of him. It was eaten off by a dragon that attacked the fort. We were able to rescue him, and we left Fort Riston, unfortunately, in the hands of the Fae, because there was not much that we could do, outnumbered at least 100 to 1. So we decided then to go to Fort Nunda to see if we can find any rangers that maybe had made their way there. So we reached Fort Nunda only to be ambushed by these disease-ridden hounds. They attacked us with their festering bites and putridous breath, but we were able to fell them in addition to, ironically enough, gambling with some trolls and having to fight them. And then there was another troll that wielded spells and wands and crazy thing. We ended up defeating them to go into the vault of Fort Nunda, made by the old rangers from the day that had slain some dragons that were in the Phaendar. We were able to recover, after a long-fought battle, some artifacts of power, some being some dragonbane arrows, which we thought may come in handy, knowing that there was a dragon loose somewhere in the Phaendar. So we were able to equip ourselves, but again, alas, no rangers. So we decided to make our final walk to Fort Travale to see if we could find rangers there. We did, but not before we were ambushed and attacked by a bunch of hobgoblins that had taken over the fort. Unfortunately, we were outnumbered and outmatched, so we tried our best, but had to make a tactful retreat. At that point, we decided to go back to Mistholm, see if we could get ourselves bolstered back up, healed, and collect our thoughts to go back in for a more strategic entrance. So, at that point, we returned back to Travale. We were able to dispatch the other hobgoblins, and sure enough, we were able to find some of the rangers. They were unfortunately famished, completely deprived of food, and I think that they were being starved, basically to be broken, whether to divulge information or just the fact that they wanted to break some of the strongest rangers, in the forest. But we were able to successfully liberate them, but not before we had to go atop of the fort itself to fight a massive black dragon. So we ascended and fought this maddening dragon. Must have been just completely absorbed by the blight, just maddening, jaws broken, just kind of mutilated type of creature that's blasting acid all over. There's other little dragons. He was casting just illusion spells. It was a hard-fought battle. My nephew fell, but not before he was able to strike true and help bring down the dragon. And that's kind of all that had happened. We liberated the forts, got the rangers kind of back on their feet, but completely just a shell of what we unfortunately once were. But it's kind of where I will end. This grub is looking fantastic, and I want to get back to it.
All right. So you relay all of that information to the Synod, and you can make 3 checks.
What were the check choices again? Sorry.
So you can do a praise if you have any physical evidence, a bluff, a diplomacy, an intimidate, an applicable knowledge, an applicable profession, an applicable perform, a sense motive, or a spellcraft if you have an acquired magic item. I would say that for your purposes, you could do your perform and you could do your diplomacy, because that's kind of what your class feature is supposed to do. So if you have ranks separate in either of those, you could do both. So
and then how do I break it up? Just however I want to tell you about.
Yeah, you just choose how you'd like to roll your checks for those 3 parts, and we'll roll them.
So my appraise is not fantastic, but can I do any knowledge?
Any applicable knowledge, yeah.
So I believe I will do a knowledge arcana for the last part when we're Fort Travale. Not that it will help, but I will ask Kieran to let me show off one of the black dragon scales that he uses for his acid breath, to be able to explain about Ibzariak the dragon, not that's part of it, but referencing, the blight and what we encountered there.
Yep.
I believe for Fort Nunder section, or Riston, excuse me, be able to do a bluff, just kind of relish in how many Fae there actually were, and the trials that we had. Because, it was more of we were just kind of crashing a party. We were like the wedding crashers.
Right.
That would be Owen Wilson. But
you could bluff and say like how hard the red caps were that we fought, even though we didn't actually
fight them. Right.
Fight the red caps.
We could reference all of that. Yep. And then I guess for Fort Riston, I don't know, what else do I want to do?
You could do standard perform,
or like a knowledge local in describing.
Well, he's already doing a knowledge.
Oh,
yeah.
I see.
But you could do like a perform oratory just as telling the story really well, basically.
What I'll do is I'll swap that up. So let me do a knowledge. I'm actually going to do a knowledge engineering for Fort Nunder to talk about all the elaborate traps that we had set up for the vault. And then I'll just switch to a basic oratory, just kind of because I feel like it's encompassing the blight, the dragon, and all of that together. I'll just kind of blend it into one simpler role.
And I would say, in terms of aiding another, I don't think anyone except Kieran would have been present to attempt that. So Kieran, you can aid on any of these.
So I'm doing bluff, knowledge engineering, and then just a straight oratory. I don't know, you could just call it diplomacy if we want.
I can aid on bluff because I don't have perform oratory or...
Well, perform's not trained only, so you can still attempt to hit a 10.
Yeah, I could try. Can you aid on more than one check?
Yeah, you can aid on any of them.
But I could do it as just a diplomacy check, correct, Jason, and just have her aid on diplomacy, and then I would just roll as an oratory.
Yeah, because as a bard, your perform counts as a bunch of things, so we could have her, it could be a diplomacy instead of a perform in all technicalities.
Yeah, I'm going to roll oratory, but it's just going to be a diplomacy check for the last one.
So yeah, you could roll diplomacy to aid on that one. The knowledge engineering, if you have that, you could try it. And I think the other one was bluff. You could, again, that's not trained only. You could attempt that too.
Okay. So let me just look up something real quick.
And this is obviously talking in Dwarven, because I do have that.
All right. Yep. Noted.
Okay. My 2 checks are going to be a +2 higher because of my belt of Dwarven kind, because I'm trying to deal with dwarves.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. +4 competence to this.
Okay.
So my bluff is a 10 + 4, 14.
Okay, yeah, so it does aid. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then my diplomacy is a 22 + 4, 26.
Fantastic.
So both of those will aid.
And then, so I will start with my bluff. So this will be at a +4, adding in the Dwarven speaking and with the aid. Nice. So that is a 36.
Yeah.
And then I will roll for knowledge engineering. Now, Jason, can I be a dirtbag and do my lore? My nat 20?
Your lore?
The bard lore. The lore master, sorry.
I guess technically, yeah.
So I will take a 20 on that. So that will be a 34.
Bards, dude. Put them in a social environment.
Well, actually, I'm sorry. Plus 2. So it's actually, that also is a 36. So it's a 36 for bluff, 36 for my engineering, and then I will roll my oratory, which would be another +4, which is a 41. Hopefully these all pass.
So rolled a natural 13 on the bluff, a natural 18 on the oratory, and then of course the 20. So again, all good rolls. Yeah, put a dwarf in a social environment, and they're just like, why are you asking me to roll these checks? I just win. Yeah, so high 30s for all those. All 3 of those are going to be wild successes. So yeah, as you describe the story, you do find that in the opening bit there, the dwarves, they find the beginning of your story a little bit bland, just because all except for Gorm find it difficult to engage with the concept of exploring a forest, but you do a remarkable job despite that shortcoming, despite that disadvantage of playing up the details enough that you keep them steady with their concentration there. You notice they kind of aren't terribly interested in some aspects, so you immediately pivot away from those and start talking about the other bits, and you draw them right back in. So you do a remarkable job there. The events, of course, at Fort Riston and the rescue of Sirio regain the attention of Gorm easily, who is particularly enraptured by your tales of adventure. Carburton kind of proclaims himself to be an authority on Fae. So as you begin maybe trying to bluff up some of the events there, he's like, you can tell he's trying to like analyze everything you say, and like any little bit that you say he's trying to poke a hole in, but your rolls are all very good. So like he's having a hard time finding any faults with your descriptions. Despite feeling like he is some authority, you seem to almost like a textbook describe things as they should be, and he can't really find too much fault with you there. And then, of course, at the culmination of your story, you have some of the scales of Ibzariak that Kieran has been lugging around with him this whole time, and you have those to kind of give some evidence. And you talk about the blight a little bit. You maybe mention that one side corner of the tower that had I guess you could call it an altar with a different dragon's scale. And then you after talking to Jane, you definitely mentioned, you definitely learned a little bit about Nefexi, I think, at least the name. So maybe you mentioned a little bit about the relationship between the two dragons.
Oh, had that Fae too with the rock grub, the creepy one that kept going invisible.
So Carburton takes the sample scales and he looks at them, and as you're talking about the blight, he kind of nods and he verifies pretty much everything that you just said to the Synod, and you think that you did a very good job maintaining the story there, and they don't find any real faults in or lose attention in your story at all there. So good job for Section 2. We're doing well. We're doing steady. We'll see if Section 3 can handle it.
I'm gonna, at the end, I will ask the court to be like, now, I very much appreciate all that you're doing for us, but our poor friend here, and I'm speaking in Dwarven, he doesn't really have the, elegant tongue of the dwarves. If I may, could I allow him to speak in your tongue? That way it might relay the story better.
Gorm kind of looks over to Carburton and to Thramira, and he says, as long as they are able to verify the spell that you are casting, I don't see any issue with it.
So he looks at his buddy Carburton. I'm going to be casting tongues, if I may.
He nods, and he just kind of looks at you, and he's waiting for you to begin the motions to make sure that that is indeed the spell.
Bluff, I'm going to use lightning bolt, huh? So I look at Gideon. All right, I'm going to help you out here, buddy. And I will cast tongues on Gideon for Dwarven.
Okay, awesome. And this whole time, since he was excluded from the conversation, I'm assuming it was made known to Gideon what was happening?
Absolutely not.
So that's, we could easily handwave that. Maybe you're sitting next to Oran or Kieran, and they're maybe whispering translations to you along just to keep you up to date on stuff. That's right. Easily done.
Which is what I assumed would have been happening up until tongues getting cast on him. And all the while, then he will have been scratching down notes as quickly as he can, recognizing that he's got a turn coming up.
Yeah. So that will bring us to Section 3. We'll see if we can stay strong here. So, Assault on Long Shadow, the title of Book 3. This section follows your journey through the Hollow Hills, your many engagements with the Legion prior to reinforcing Long Shadow, your battle against the Doppelgangers and the Nightmare Assassins, the short trip you took to the Wizard's Tower, and then the final battle against Kosaruk's army. So, take it away, Gideon.
Thank you, Jessup. Where he left off, I assume, is about when I became aware of the Nirmathi plight. I am Gideon Rose Everstand, a former knight of Ozum, raised in Vigil. It was there that Sir Dark, an honored member of the Knights of Ozum, reported these events to us. The news happened to coincide with a personal conversion of faith that I was having to the Everbloom Milani, and so I interpreted the timing as a divine signal. I accepted Nirmathos as my divine charter for protection, and pledged my shield to their cause. I traveled south from Vigil and met a band of refugees, who I planned to escort to Vigil before I encountered Kieran, Jessup, and another party member who's no longer here. I also gravely had learned that the path I had taken into Nirmathos was now held behind enemy lines, and that Long Shadow was also in danger. It was the Legion's next target, and it posed a great danger to the nation should Long Shadow fall. It would have cut Nirmathi supply lines, hindered the manufacturing and distribution of weapons, and done the exact opposite, expedited the Legion's advance. So it was of grave importance, and we understood that. Not only the lives of those that lived in Long Shadow, but throughout the country were in jeopardy. We traveled there, after gathering some supplies and taking the refugees with us, in an attempt to explain the danger to the Council in Long Shadow. At first they were not receptive, but they came around, and during that time we personally took efforts to sabotage the Legion. We attacked weapon camps, siege equipment, beasts of burden, and everything else that we could to slow their advance. But unfortunately, our attempts to sabotage were not met alone. We encountered these magical creatures, sort of night stalkers, that could take on the appearance of anyone else and inflict night terrors. We couldn't even trust the faces in front of us. But as fate would have it, and perhaps through divine intervention, we made it through that time. The night terrors, the night stalkers, they infiltrated the council, and they had made gaining the cooperation of the council and townsfolk difficult. But we found them, suppressed them, and snuffed them out, thankfully. And during that time, we gained and added the important and valuable members to our cause. A wizard of great strength, local leaders, and many everyday folk who volunteered in any way that they could. I personally trained a fast militia of whom I am very proud of their service and the sacrifice. And well, after days of preparation, the Legion emerged beyond the horizon and prepared to lay siege. Before the battle, they attempted parley to demand and negotiate the conditions of our surrender. But the people of Nirmathos are strong and would not cave. I have learned this. A true Nirmathi would never betray their way of life. And so we held. The battle ensued, and Long Shadow held.
All right. So go ahead and what 3 checks would you like to make? For this part of the story, Jessup was there and Kieran was there, so both of you could aid on any of those.
Yeah. So I would like, I can do a flat diplomacy pretty okay. I'm comfortable with that.
All right.
A 31 because of I'm speaking Dwarven now, or tongues only lets me understand. I can't remember.
No, you speak Dwarven.
Yeah, I think it lets you speak it as well.
Yeah, it's unlike you can, but you can only do one at a time.
Yeah. Okay.
So, Jessup would auto aid.
All right.
Yeah, I can aid with a 18.
Okay. So that would bring it to a 35. Okay. There's 1 check.
I think, honestly, Gideon, you would have gotten an additional circumstance bonus if you talked about the time that you were picking berries naked.
I omitted that part.
Oh, Jessup probably chimed in and let everybody know, don't worry.
Oh, amazing. If anyone were to ask a follow-up, I'd advocate that he could roll religion to just vet and explain the tenets of Milani and that the strength of his conviction. If that corroborates the story or explains anything, I'd accept that.
I could allow knowledge religion if you link the tenets of Milani with the various slave groups that you encountered and freed. I could allow that.
Yeah, he could talk about how they liberated a number of slave groups. So I could do that one.
So 29. So yeah,
Jessup would auto aid with a 12,
which would bring that to a 33. All right, there's 2 checks. 1 more.
This is his worst one, but he'll go ahead and just perform oratory.
Okay.
Huh.
So
Not
28.
So for 30 minus aids.
Just add my 2 to that, buddy.
Yeah.
32.
32. So again, the natural rolls are a 12, an 11, and an 18. I don't think anybody has rolled less than an 11 on any of these checks
Ooh, I
yet.
just say something.
So very consistent rolling there. So yes, all 3 of those will be a success. So as you describe your rescue and unification of several groups of freed slaves, you see that Lady Hikal stirs a bit at the thought of communities rebuilding from disaster, potential markets that open up, and she kind of cringes at the mention of all the devastation of the area. as you begin to go into the further exploration of the Hollow Hills, again, that appeals to Gorm's sense of adventure, and he is eager to hear of lands that are so close to his own. And the rallying of Long Shadow, the resisting of the Ironfang Legion's assault, earns a reaction from all the members of the Even-Handed Synod, who sympathize with the plight of being besieged. The details of the Onyx Tower that you might have mentioned at the start of the attack once again drive Carburton into a deep contemplation, but you feel that you have accurately conveyed the events of the story, and again, the dwarves are all nodding in agreement, and they seem to be following you with utmost attention to what you say.
Some details that he would highlight, though, too, are of how quickly the Legion was able to make their campaign advances through regions that would have normally taken longer to travel, and just to say how difficult that was and how it left him trapped in Near Mythos, essentially, at the one point.
Right.
And further corroborate how quickly they're able to move and the strength of the Onyx Tower.
Yep. So that brings us to section 4 here. So we're going to break this up a little bit. So, Kieran, you will be telling the beginning and middle, and then there will be a response, and then you'll be able to tell the conclusion. So we'll do 2 checks at first. We're going to break it up a little bit. But section 4, Siege of Stone, the current book of Ironfang that we are in. This final section depicts the events most relevant to the Even-Handed Synod, which they will scrutinize in great detail. Your battles in the Valley of Aloy, and in the Morlock Warrens, the fight with Xanathura's Simulacrum, and the notes that you found detailing the journey through the Darklands Highway, the Long Walk, and then, of course, your brief time in what you would have later learned is called Kragadan's Furnace, the lake of lava down there. The third check will cover your final appeal and petition to the dwarves to gain, free access to Vaultway and the Royal Archives, perhaps. Maybe free access to the surface if you find a need to go there for your investigation for some reason. And just requesting anything else in terms of being able to investigate and research the truth behind what happened 2 years ago and the artifact that you are looking for. But that conclusion we will do separately. So just 2 checks first, but go ahead and begin the story, Kieran.
Okay, I have one question before I get into it.
All right.
What specifically led us to the Valley of Aloy? Is that...
So a couple things led you to the Valley of Aloy. Most notably was the presence of Morlocks.
Okay.
But secondly, when you defeated Kosaruk and toppled the tower, a number of maps and papers went flying that you found, which kind of pointed out a couple of the Legion's army placements, like at Phaendar, at Long Shadow, and whatnot. And you found a particularly large group at the Valley of Aloy. And pretty much anybody in the Hollow Hills, if you ask them about Morlocks, they'll say, oh yeah, that's the Valley of Aloy. That's where all the Morlocks come from. And you knew that you had to get to Kragadan at some point, and the tower mentioned Kragadan, and basically the Valley of Aloy was the only place that you could go to try to find more information, and it was at that location where you found what you were looking for. But yeah, the notes that you found after the battle mentioned Xanathura. They mentioned briefly some of that information, so you knew kind of what was over there. You didn't know that she was a Naga or anything, but you knew that the Ironfang had found a way into Kragadan somehow, and that the Valley of Aloy was the connecting point you needed to look into. So.
Okay. All right, perfect. So at the end of Gideon's recollection, Kieran will stand. He will give a polite bow, and he will say, my esteemed council members, I am honored that you've given us the chance to recall our stories for you. My name is Kieran. I am but a humble former soldier, now adventurer, who comes from the great city of Absalom and met up with the rest of these over the course of many days as I traveled through the Fangwood in search of dragons. As they mentioned, our travels here have been fraught with dangers, and the most of which would be the great tower that had appeared outside of Long Shadow, as Gideon recalled. As we fought with the leader of that invasion at Long Shadow, we did notice on this great tower that there were writings, drawings that referenced Kragadan and the quest for Sky. It was the only lead that we had to go on once we toppled the tower. And once the tower fell, we gathered papers from within that led us to the Valley of Aloy and groups of Morlocks that were reported to have been there. We traveled to the Valley of Aloy once Long Shadow had been secured, and indeed there we found bands of Morlocks. We entered the Warrens. We killed their chief, who had been operating under the influence of a creature known as the World Serpent, or to some of them a false serpent. This indeed was a simulacrum that we believe was a simulacrum of Xanathura, one of the generals operating under Azersi in the Iron Fang Legion. From there, we entered the Darklands, knowing that the only way to get to Kragadan was through the Darklands. And in the Darklands, we encountered many dangerous creatures, including Paluda, Duragar troops with which we had to diplomatize and bargain and pay tolls. We continued on and met up with Atrox and two Naga that we had to fight. We continued on and met up with a creature of which I shudder to recall, some great creature with many limbs or arms or tentacles, and needless to say, I was killed in that battle and thankfully brought back to life thanks to our cleric Oran. From there, we continued on deeper in until we came to Kragadan's furnace. And from there, the rest is kind of history. We found a great door that we were able to bypass, and we met up with the guards that you had out front, and they allowed Oran to go in, and he met with the esteemed archivist here. I can't remember his name. What's his name?
Carburton Lightbrand.
Carburton. Good grief. I keep wanting to say, I'm playing Dragon Age Origins, and I keep wanting to say Harrowmount, because that's what I just did with the dwarves.
That's a totally different name.
It is very different. I just can't get it out of my head. So he will clear his throat, and he'll say, your esteemed archivist, Carburton. And that's kind of where we're at right now, recalling this story for you. We've come a long way. It hasn't been easy. I'll be the first to say I've died twice, maybe 3 times. It kind of blends together after a while. But we truly are here telling you the truth and begging for your support in this. I know that you are under siege by Multhun right now, and I know that has not been easy. But right now, there's a greater threat to all of us than the Multhun army. It's the Iron Fang Legion, and I fear for even Kragadan if the Legion takes over Nirmathos, and perhaps eventually Multhun as well.
Okay, so you'll have 2 checks to make for this recounting here. Again, you have the same list as everyone before. So, and of course, all of you were present for all parts of this, so everyone can aid on these checks at this point.
So I guess one check that I want to make, and I would pull out, because we still have this, I would pull out the +1 adamantine construct bane battle axe, which I think came from hobgoblins that were dead in that area with the...
No, that was the Trox that was dead.
Oh, that was the Trox. Okay, so I would pull that out.
You found that alongside the scarab in the corpses of the Trox as items that they had stolen from their Duragar slave masters when they fled.
Okay, yeah, so I would pull that out to kind of corroborate with my story about the Duragar patrols and the Trox that we encountered. So I guess that would be a spellcraft?
Yep, that could be a spellcraft. And yeah, so just keep in mind, you will have 1 more check after these 2. So If you have one in particular to save for the conclusion, you can keep that in mind as well.
Okay.
Yeah, spellcraft, that'll work. Yep.
Okay, so spellcraft for me is a 20.
Okay, +2 because you're dwarven. Or not.
Yeah, I'm
Speaking dwarven.
I'm a great value dwarf.
That would make it a 22. But yeah, anybody could aid on this one because you were all present for those events.
Jessup auto aids.
Ooh, just barely.
An 11.
Both of you with 11s.
And then Jessup, his is enough to automatically aid. So that would make it another +6. So 28. The total would be 28. Okay. And 1 more check for now.
All right. Okay. Would you allow me and this is going to be really dumb, but I think it makes sense. Would you allow me to roll a linguistics check on what we found on the tower? Was that one of the things that we
I like
rolled
that.
to identify that?
Yeah, you had to roll.
I think we did a history, maybe.
Was it history?
There was knowledge history, and there was also linguistics, I think, because you had to determine that it was dwarven, but there was also more ancient Terran written on there. So
Right.
I would allow that. Yeah.
Okay, and I'll tell you, I only have a 2 in linguistics. Actually, I don't think I can even use it because I'm not trained, so never mind.
Yeah.
I
that
didn't
might
think
be-
about that. I was trying to be
might not
creative and not just
be
do
problematic.
the skills that I'm super good at.
Kieran, do knowledge nobility to name some of the people that were kind of listed on there. Didn't they have the names of different
They
higher
had names of
dwarves?
clans that were alongside Kragadan in the Ascent. Yes.
So would you call that local or nobility?
I would say nobility or history. Yeah, I wouldn't say local.
Okay. So I can roll a knowledge nobility then.
Okay.
I was trying to find something that wasn't just like a maxed out, but that makes sense. So knowledge nobility is a 28.
22 to 8.
Okay, that will aid. So that brings it to a 32.
I can't aid because I don't have a rank in it.
Yep, that auto aid.
Okay, so that would make it a 34.
34.
So the natural rolls on those were a 6 and a 19. So we had one check that was sub 10, but everybody else, a 19 or, yeah, pretty much everybody rolled 10 or higher on almost all those checks. And both of those will pass. The DC for this one was the highest of all 4 sections. The DC was 27, so your 28 just did pass that one. So
Ooh, I needed everybody's help for that.
you had the hardest DC out of everybody. So yeah, as you describe these events, your description of Xanathara's simulacrum and the discovery of her notes raise visible concern and alarm for all of the members of the Even-Handed Synod. Carburton almost exasperated. He kind of questions verbally how she would have learned all of the information that she knew about Kragadan's accidental backdoor. Hikal and Thramira show particular interest in the dwarven ruins at Aloy, seeing potential for future restoration of the fortress. Each member of the Even-Handed Synod listens closely to your journey through the Darklands. Carburton takes notes on your route, your specific route. Thramira shows visible distaste at the thought of, I don't know if you mentioned having a Duragar guide, but at the very least at the mention of any sort of dealing with the Duragar, let alone the guide if you did mention that. She shows visible distaste at that thought of interaction, but makes no other comment. Lady Hikal and Gorm both voice opposite opinions on your dealings with the Duragar patrols and how you interacted with them. Lady Hikal being more of a commerce-minded person and Gorm being more of an adventurer. They seem to have different takes on how those interactions were held. But overall, you see that all 4 of the members are, again, attentive, nodding. None of them seem to be frowning or glaring at you. One thing, however, you did notice, Kieran, is that when you gave your initial introduction, one of the individuals that was standing sentinel over the proceedings walked up to the table and whispered something to Thramira, who kind of squinted a bit, and then that individual walked back to the wall. You have no idea what that was all about, but there was no other mention of that at all. It was just a strange thing that seemed to happen there. And after detailing that section of the story, Gorm takes a moment to study each of you, and then he says, "Very well. You have told us your story. I admit parts of it are difficult to believe, but you have presented ample evidence. With that said, what would you have the Even-Handed Synod do?" And this is at the point, Kieran, where you could give an encompassing conclusion. You can make requests that you'd want, such as access to Vault Way, such as access to the Royal Archives for research. If you wanted to ask for further things like access to the surface, anything you'd want, you could include in this conclusion. And if you wanted to ask any individual requests from any of the 4 members here, or as Kragadan as a whole, that would all be under this whole conclusion. So go ahead.
I'll just say, first and foremost, Gideon's done being babysat. That would be one thing that he would like to have stop happening.
Kieran just asks for 50,000 gold, and that's it.
Just a paltry sum.
just 50,000 gold and nothing else.
You almost could leave with that. It's like a joke, you know? Like there's 100. It's just like a joke. And like, I'm just kidding. This is what we want.
Yeah, right. Yep. So he would, after he lets the council or the synod have their reactions to what was going on. I did say in our chat that I purposefully did not mention our Durgar guide, just in case. So I kind of skirted around that a little bit. But he would turn to them and he would say, I don't know exactly what was written on that tower. Our Jessup and Oran were able to gather more information from that, but I do know it mentioned Kragadan. I know there's some connection with Kragadan, and that's why we're here. We're looking for more information. You've all been extremely hospitable to us. Your city is magnificent and wonderful, and I think I can speak for us all in saying that I've had a great time here. I've been treated very kindly, but now is the time for us to continue our business, and part of that, I believe, is digging into your archives. I know Gideon has spent some time there. We also are hoping that perhaps you might grant us access to the Vaultway.
With that, you can go ahead and roll your final check.
All right, I think that would be a diplomacy, probably.
Bluff.
You can do that.
Yeah. I was hoping to, work in a profession soldier to be cool, but I don't think I can. I'll just do
You
diplomacy.
could be like, we need military access.
Yeah, there you go, Jason. There's my natural 3. Plus, with my negative level, it's like a natural 2. So that's a 12.
So 14 because of the speaking Dwarven. And then
16 because
16.
of my belt.
Oh,
And then
16.
18 because of speaking Dwarven.
And then I will also auto aid. So it's a 20.
Okay.
I don't even want to aid. That was atrocious. I'm just kidding. I will.
No, I mean, it's not going to hit because if my other DCs were like 28, I can't get there.
They just tell us no, and that's it.
Yeah, right. They're like, if you had only asked for 50,000 gold, we would have said yes.
Yeah,
but
they're like, you succeeded every single check up to this point, but this was the only one that actually mattered, so no. So yeah, you give your final conclusion, and you're looking to all of them, and you see that there's still an air of sternness with them. Gorm kind of crosses his arms and looks to his sister, purses his lips, and then looks back to you. Could the 4 of you give us time to discuss? We have much to talk about, and I will personally inform you of our decision tomorrow. Is that acceptable?
certainly, absolutely. Like I said, you've been very kind to us. And while time is of the essence, I do believe that we can wait another day to hear back from you.
Very good then, yes. Well, it has been a pleasure talking to all 4 of you, and the 4 of us will remain here for a time longer, and we will discuss things and expect to, I guess, Carberton, I'll have you meet with them again next morning and bring them to my office, and we will discuss our conclusions here. So, for the rest of today, I think we can at least agree that the escort is no longer necessary, so feel free to move around within the mountain hold without escort for the rest of today, and then I will let you know tomorrow morning if we can expand your privileges to some of the more restricted areas. And he kind of stands up and reaches out to shake each of your hands in turn as the meeting concludes, and everybody is prepared to leave.
All right, Kieran will do a final bow to them before he will turn. And he does the typical, he will walk. No, he does not curtsy.
With his sandals.
He does the bow and then begins walking backwards and does not turn his back until he's practically at the door.
He moonwalks to the door.
Yes, he moonwalks with his new sandals, his new Crocs of quick reaction.
All right.
Jessup bows and doesn't realize how long his sike is, and it falls off when it hits the table. Puts it back on and then runs out the door.
Potatoes
all of the dwarves, the dwarves are like, take off that ridiculous hat. It's absurd.
It makes me feel taller.
We don't even know where we got that.
All right. So with that, is there anything that your characters would like to do before the next morning?
So as soon as we walk out, Jessup will look at the crew and, well, I think that went okay, I guess.
Yeah.
Gideon shrugs.
We're not dead, and we don't need chaperones, so, I mean, win, right?
I think it is a win. We'll see what. Hopefully, we can learn more tomorrow.
I will say it was very interesting hearing you recount about Phaendar, Oran. I don't know if I ever heard it from the beginning like that.
It was quite a ordeal. It was a trying time.
Right.
It's kind of the story of this campaign, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I have a feeling it's going to get worse before it gets better.
I don't know what you mean. It's probably going to be sunshine and rainbows. Speaking of that, I can't wait to see sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah, it's a bit unnerving. I don't know if I could live underground permanently. I miss the sun.
I'm really surprised that dwarves are naturally tan for living in an underground environment.
I think it's more because of the forges they work with.
Oh, maybe that's true. It's soot. I'm getting pasty white down here.
Well, I've always been pasty white. I can't even not roleplay a character that's not pasty white.
Just a humble person from Absalom who owned slaves. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I'm just a humble,
Kieran's
humble
like, thank you.
Absalomian.
Thank you for allowing my slaves to speak. Now it is my turn to end this conversation.
Oh, man.
Yeah, you guys spend the rest of the day doing whatever it is that you'd like to do, going out into the city again, this time without a chaperone, maybe getting lost in the back alleys, whatever you'd like.
Kieran has purposefully got his hood up and he's crouched down low, just like walking through the back alleys, all sneaky like.
We immediately become degenerates and get involved in as many fights as possible.
We are immediately arrested.
You just brought back to the same room. They haven't even finished discussing it. They're just like, seriously?
They're like, man, this guy looks way too edgy.
Yeah, so the next morning, Carburton meets with each of you and escorts you to your meeting with the prince. And you are brought... actually, you can tell from Carburton's eyes right away and the lack of energy that you don't think he slept at all between the last time that you saw him. And you can tell that he's a little deranged from...
I'm sorry about that, buddy. You should have asked me. I would have gotten you a good old keep watch before I left the hall.
Just, oh no, it's fine. I had a lot to think about, and I was reading all night long. And we'll talk about it more with the prince if you'll follow me. And he kind of ushers you into Gorm's office, and you can see that the prince is standing next to his desk, and he greets you as you enter, and he says, "The synod has decided to accept your story in its entirety. However, we still require some physical evidence that Morthune was framed before we can move forward politically. To that end, we do hereby grant full access to Cragadan. You may enter Vaultway, you may enter the Royal Archives, and if you so wish, you can go to the surface as well. I would just advise that you stay... I advise that you don't go too much past Skyhome. That is where you would be within range of siege equipment if they decided to attack. But anyways, you are granted full access, and Carburton will show you the Royal Archives if you'd like." He kind of gives each of you a serious look, and he says, "We have decided to, as I said, believe pretty much everything that you have told us. Some of your origins perhaps are a bit subject to question still, but on behalf of the Even-Handed Senate, I would like to request that the four of you personally investigate the Reliquary of Ascension and uncover proof that this Ironfang Legion framed Morthune. Your efforts could lead to a truce and an end to this siege, but I warn you the Reliquary may be dangerous. We attempted our own investigation 2 years ago, but we were repelled by vicious gugs that followed the path of whoever initially broke into the Vaultway. We sealed the creatures into the Reliquary and left them to starve, but in the chaos leading up to the siege, we've yet to muster a secondary investigation. And as I said, if you want to go to the Royal Archives to do some preliminary research, you are welcome to." Again, his expression changes a little bit from seriousness to more of a confident expression. He says, You four have proven yourselves capable in battle and knowledgeable. I see none more suited to this task, should you be willing to take it. These rings will grant you access to Voltway and protect you from any of the dangers within. Even so, make sure that you take every possible precaution. As I said, you might want to do some preliminary research at the Royal Archives before you delve into Voltway, but you can speak with Carberton more in detail on that if you'd like. And then he hands each of you a ring bearing the sigil of Kragadan. And I actually have a handout here that shows you what the sigil of Kragadan is. And that is what you would be emblazoned on your ring there. And I have revealed the upper map of Kragadan there. You can see this is, if you scroll up, that is the surface where you can see the previously mentioned fist, known as the Fist.
Oh, yeah. Gideon wants to check that out.
And you recall that the prince mentioned that you probably shouldn't go much past Skyhome should you decide to go to the surface, because you would be within range of siege equipment, which might be problematic.
I'll take my chances. What's the GM going to do? Kill me to siege equipment?
Maybe, who knows? That will be up to you. And now, of course, you do have access to the Royal Archives. And just in case you were curious, I have this wasn't set up quite like this in the book, but I decided to, I read up on the research rules, and I have statted out Kragadan's Royal Archives. I have its knowledge points, I have the bonus that it gives any checks, I have the checks you can make, and then I have all the relevant information there. So if you would like to do some research, we can do that. That is more than fine. Or you could go straight into the Reliquary of Ascension. It is however you would like to proceed.
Kieran would ask a
I
question.
think Oran would like to do some research.
I'm team research.
Okay, well, we'll do the question first before we start making teams here.
Okay, Kieran would ask, so what are the limits to using magic in the city, particularly dimensional travel? I'm assuming that it's not possible, but is it possible at least within the city?
Prince Gorm looks to Carberton and says, if I'm not mistaken, Carberton, these sigils should preclude them from any traps, yes? And Carberton nods. He says, yes, as long as you wear those, even our dimensional traps shouldn't hinder you.
Oh, all right. So I can dimension door up to the surface and back down.
If you'd like, we have elevators.
Oh, that would actually be kind of fun.
Yes, either or, it's up to you.
And you said not to go past Skyhome for fear of
Skyhome, yes, that is the walled settlement up there. If you go past that, you'll be within range. Morthune hasn't had another push in about a month or two here, but we're expecting one here soon, so I would caution about going too frivolously up there. At any moment, we could be recalling an evacuation, but until then, you're free to look around.
Are you able to see the Molthuni army from there?
Oh, of course, yes. Their tents cover probably a fair distance into the plains after outside of the honor wall. Yes, you can see them very easily.
All right, Kieran will turn to Gideon. He'll say, Gideon, I don't know, it might be interesting to see. If you're interested, I wouldn't mind going up there at some point.
No, I wouldn't mind taking a look. I'm also interested in the fist that was mentioned. I'd like to see it up close.
Yeah, so Kieran will probably spend some time just exploring the surface. I don't know if he's that interested in the research, but he would help if they wanted his help.
Oran will immediately begin research.
So, why are we going up to do sightseeing now?
Just because it's not every day that you get to be part of a sky citadel and to see the things up there. I don't know.
I would actually disagree with that. It's pretty much every day.
Well, for you, yes, but not for us. And honestly, I don't know what's going to happen, where our paths are going to take us from here, but we may never get the chance to come back.
I guess I really would prefer to do some research or investigating as soon as possible, because I feel time's of the essence, but
I've seen it in times of the essence, so I'm gonna go do some research.
And that's fine. I'm not saying you can't. And it's not like I'm going to spend days doing this.
Gideon will look to Jessup. Rest assured, Jessup, there's certainly intel to gain here as well. We've only survived one siege. Hopefully the gods will not allow us another, but should that come to pass, seeing what they do here could help us in the future.
And when you say research, you mean going to the archives?
Yes, so the rules for research are basically you can make a research check, which encompasses 8 hours of research. So basically it's a daily thing. Like you can spend a day researching and you roll a check, and depending on what you roll, you basically do damage to the library's knowledge pool. And as you do a certain amount of damage to the library's knowledge pool, you gain bits of information.
Okay. And Kieran will say, honestly, if time's of the essence, then we really should just go straight down into the reliquary, right?
You know, I guess I'm just itching to get to it. I guess if time was of the essence, I shouldn't have, petitioned somebody to work on my bow for 6 days. Yeah, I'll go up and look too. Why not? In hindsight, you're right.
Gideon glances a look at Kieran because he knew that they all did that. And just kind of was like, all right, let's go.
Kieran's going to shrug and say, I'm prepared to go into a fight without my glaive. I'd rather not, but if time is truly of the essence, I have other means to defend myself if we aren't able to wait.
No, I think we can wait. I'm still going to do some research. I'd like to look into the stone towers and whatnot, see if we can learn anything more there.
Well, it's the morning, right? So, I mean, I guess in theory we have time to go check out see the sun and then come back down and do 8 hours of research, right? Mechanically 8 hours of research. I don't know what that means, but it just feels right.
Okay, all right. Kieran, like a drop of sweat, goes down the side of his face. 8 hours. Did you mean to say 8 hours?
Indeed.
I mean, if we push it long enough, maybe like 14 or something, I suppose.
It'll probably take that long, Kieran.
I mean, that's just one day. I mean, it could be multiple days. But no. Let's go upstairs. We can
Carver
go.
chimes in. He says, "Yes, actually, I didn't sleep at all last night, and I still am yet to find anything terribly useful. The Royal Archives are vast. We might be there a while."
I'm sure they rival or even more than the archives in Vigil, and there were new members of the Knights of Ozum that would just spend their times studying there for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks.
Yes, I don't mean to brag, but the history of Kragadan does greatly outdate the history of the Ozum.
I'm sure Vigil is newly created, and since then, obviously, they've made efforts to archive its history, but even the process of writing takes long, so too does it take long to recover those writings.
Indeed.
As you guys are talking, Kieran is slow nodding with an extremely pained look on his face. Just slowly nodding.
Real quick, and I apologize, I totally forgot to do this before. I have images for each of the members of the Synod that you would have encountered there, and I totally forgot to show them to you. So
I thought he was going to tell us we hit level 13. That would have been cool.
That would have been real. I would have really liked that.
He's like, you really need to be level 13 to do this research.
So Thramira Greathammer, this is what she looks like.
Oh, wow. She does not have a beard at all.
Oh, my goodness.
And of course, you already saw Corbin Lightbrand.
Yeah, I was going to say I prefer his cartoon version better.
Yeah, I think that one's better myself, but this is the bust version.
Like his mohawk, though.
This is Hikal Balatam.
Big bottom.
She looks sassy.
Balatum. she definitely's got an attitude. She's worked too long in the diner for sure.
She's the aristocrat.
Yes, she is the merchant type. Yeah,
That's
the aristocrat.
close to the Sarah look, though.
How dare you? How dare you?
Jason can attest to that.
She's making the face right now. How dare you?
I feel it.
Looking just like
feel
that.
it.
And of course, Gorm Greathammer looks like this.
Mustache or his mouth?
What happened to his beard? That's all he can grow?
Who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows? It doesn't say.
He's got like a frat boy haircut.
I feel like he has no top lip.
Yeah, it doesn't look like he has a
It's been
top lip.
eaten by his mustache.
It looks like the worst kind of mullet.
Hey, be quiet, because I'm sure that we have a couple listeners that have mullets and they're going to be offended.
I said the worst kind. Did not imply that all mullets are bad.
Good. Okay. Just make sure we clear the air on that.
Yeah.
All right, so what is the immediate plan for the party then?
I think by the sounds like Kieran wants to immediately get down there and start doing some research.
That's what I heard.
He is in no way impeding what you guys do. He is going to go to the surface, but he does not mind going alone.
No, Gideon's going to go to the surface. He was being a bit genuine. Despite the Sky Citadel being amazingly defensible just because of his location, he's curious what the daily routine looks like for a city under constant siege. So he wants to go to the Fist, and obviously they told him not to go past Skyhome, but he might tempt that depending on how much information he can glean from where he is.
Immediately disregarded there. There's
He just walks right out of the honor wall and goes up to the commander of Molten, who's just like, "Hey, man, how's it going?"
He could parlay. That's fine. Hey, I don't live here. I don't know these people. I don't really know exactly what's going on or why you're doing this, but
that's the worst kind of negotiator. That is the worst kind of negotiator. It's like, I have no idea what the dispute is here, but y'all should just get along.
Right? Like, that's what I'm saying.
Worse than Jessup's negotiation skills?
Yeah.
Up there.
All right. So was the consensus again? There'd be enough time if you wanted to go up to the surface to then go down and research. But so who all wanted to go to the surface here quick? We can do that, and then we can cycle back to the research.
Kieran's going.
Gideon.
Jessup will, but he'll tell Oran, as soon as we're done, I'll be right back and I'll help you. We'll tackle them books.
Oh, okay. Enjoy yourselves.
And in all honesty, it makes perfect sense because Oran used to live here, so it's not like he's
fascinated.
He doesn't want to go see his pseudo dad.
He sent a letter to him.
Oh, okay, but you don't want to see him?
I don't think so.
That's a topic for another day.
Can I get a sense motive on that? 23.
Jessup just has flashbacks of how much Rizarin loves and wants to see Jessup prior to their heart. So it doesn't tease him.
Jessup's like, nope, I get it. Are you trying not wearing pants?
I haven't seen my estranged son in how many years or months, and then he walks into them two dudes sleeping with no pants on in the living room. So
yeah. So at any point we could include Justin if you wanted Oran to go up to see his father, or if your letter had detailed interest in having your father come down to meet you. At any point we can role play that out if you so wish, but just let me know when you'd like to do that, if you'd like to do that, and we can do that. But for the time being, the three of you who go up to the surface, you make your way out of the office with the prince and all the way down to the lifts. And you show the sigil of Kragadan, and the guards allow you onto the lift. And you can see they are these great feats of engineering, massive iron plates that are lifted up by these huge gears. It's a pretty slow elevator because it is extremely heavy, but it does eventually get up several hundred feet, and you are given access to the surface. And you can see this massive monument, the Fist, right in front of you. And again, this whole upper portion is in a sort of tiered mountain, so you can see from the top all the way down to each of the lower sections because they are much far below you. And if you look out into the distance, you can see they're like little, like the tents are like ants. You can't even barely really see people in the distance because, again, the distance here, if you were standing at the edge, you'd be looking about 2+ miles away. So you can see the entire siege camp, but it is very, very far away. You can't make any details from how far away you are. But yeah, you're able to look around, and I would say if you do go to the Fist and just kind of start looking around and whatnot, you would, maybe a guard would come up and kind of ask your business, and you would relay, show them the sigil and relay what you're doing. And the guard would go into the fortress that is on one of the rings there, one of the fingers that acts like a ring kind of. And out would come another individual, and I'll actually show you what this individual looks like. The commander that you had heard mention of, Renso, who looks to be a person almost made of metal. Like their skin is like, and hair and eyes are like gemstones, and they're wearing full plate and everything. And those of you with any sort of knowledge of planes or whatnot, you can tell that this is in fact an Oread. So it is an earth planer, a person touched by the earth plane in a sense, or having ancestors with the earth plane. But yeah, the skin and eyes and hair of stone and gems. And this individual comes out and looks to you and says, "Greetings. I wasn't informed that we would have visitors, but I can see from your rings that you've been granted access up here. Is there anything in particular that I can help you with?"
Not in particular. We're just new to Kragadan, and we've spent the past few days down in the main city, and once we were granted access, I think we were just curious to see what life on the surface was like for those in Kragadan. Plus, this fellow here, Gideon, and myself, I'm Kieran. We are former soldiers, and we were curious to see the details of the siege that you're currently under.
Ah, yes. Well, as you can see, if you look out in the distance, Morthune has spared no effort in their army. Their numbers are quite large, but they have yet to make it more than, I would say, halfway between Skyholm and the Fist here. Our armaments have pushed them back each time, and I sympathize with General Cadmius. He has been given orders that are very hard to fulfill, and it makes my job as defender extremely advantageous, more so than normal. I imagine someday we will have to retreat into the mountain hold if this siege continues, but for now, it is sort of a stalemate, and I enjoy the back and forth. It's like a game of cat and mouse.
Well, I have 2 questions to follow, if you don't mind. You said that you sympathize with him. Do you not hate your enemy?
No, I don't think that I hate the enemy. As a fellow commander, I can understand having to follow orders that were given from above. If there's anyone that I would hate, it would be the upper echelon of Morthune for making the decision to employ the army. But I sympathize with the soldiers. It is not their choice to be here. Or it might not be their choice. I'm sure some of them would like to be here. But I think the general, he has been given a bad spot, and he's doing the best that he can. And he hasn't done anything that would draw my ire. Of course, his orders are to maintain the scenery as much as possible, so their siege equipment has been rather sparse, and they have treated all of our citizens with respect. We've had time to evacuate every time they've made a siege, so no, I don't think that I hate my enemies.
So it's only the soldiers then that are doing the bulk of the fighting, men who have agreed to it in one way or another.
You mean on the Morthuni side?
Yes.
That I don't know. I think it's mostly soldiers. I haven't seen a vast majority of mercenary regiments or anything, but...
They allow your citizens to evacuate, though, too, you said.
Yes, well, that might be part of my own misunderstanding. Every time that they attack, their progress is so slow that we have enough time to evacuate, and I don't know if that is intentional or if our defenses are simply too much for them. Perhaps I'm giving them more credit, but...
and what do you know his orders to be?
Oh, it just, he's been told not to deface any of the dwarven architecture as much as possible, so he has been unable to levy sustained assaults against our walls and simply demolish everything in sight. I'm sure that would be the most advantageous means of a siege here, but he has been prevented from that, so it has made our job rather easy.
Well, I guess he'll just... doesn't need to roleplay out, but he'll talk politics involving Teldas and others. I guess his perspective is interesting to him, to Gideon, since he says he doesn't really hold any resentment towards the soldiers, not even towards some of the generals or seeming lower level ranking officers and stuff. It just seems to be the upper echelons, the council, and other people in positions of power that he has issues with. And I just think that's interesting. So he just kind of like further explores why he thinks that, what he means by that, and that sort of thing.
And as you talk to him about politics and whatnot, you can tell that he has almost a respect for General Cadmius Ortho, the Molthuni general. It seems that he almost views this siege as a game of chess between commanders, and Ortho hasn't committed any war crimes or atrocities. It seems almost that the army of Molthun has taken measure to prevent innocent blood being spilled, which has actually further inhibited their siege advancements. So Renso seems to have kind of a respectful, distant relationship with Cadmius, which kind of paints maybe a different light to the siege than you might have expected to hear.
Yes, I think so. Or at least Gideon's perception of Molthun as having really only heard one side for a long while.
Right. So, yeah, that's what he tells you, and he continues with the conversation as much as you'd like.
Follow-up information is like, what's his personal involvement or relation to the Sky Citadel? He doesn't want to directly talk about it, but he will ask, like, you're an Oran, not a dwarf. What's the story there, kind of thing.
So, yes, I was born here as well. It is, I'm uncommon amongst the citizens at Kragadan. I think I haven't ever counted to see how many are like myself, but if I had to guess, there'd be maybe, I don't know, 24 or so other Oreids in Kragadan. I've seen a couple, and we do talk now and then, but I guess we're a bit of a rarity. But yes, I was born and raised here just like any of the dwarves, and I consider myself just as much a son of Kragadan as any of the others. And I think that I have earned my position and proven myself to be just as devout as the others.
Well, certainly you have. I suppose my final question, in the day-to-day, what is the cost in life for this ongoing siege?
Well, to be honest, the cost is mostly at the expense of the Molthuni. As I said, they have taken great pains to avoid innocent blood being spilled, and every time that they have made an advance, we have fallen back to our defensive structures, our towers, and then simply bombarded them. Again, that is why I say I do sympathize with them. I feel that they are following orders, and the loss of life is... the blame falls solely on the leaders of Molthun. If I were perhaps a better commander, perhaps I could force them back without having to shed the blood of the soldiers who... I imagine they didn't ask to be here, but Kragadan has taken very few losses in terms of citizens. There is occasionally times where some stubborn individuals refuse to leave their homes and are caught in the crossfire, but I don't think that any such loss of life has been intentional. It's simply a consequence of the poor circumstances we all find ourselves in.
Well, Gideon looks out then, and how do you think then that they're able to maintain morale, or why keep doing it? Surely Molthun is far away, and Teldas is not here to see what the front lines look like.
Well, I think that there might be a couple of different things that could be attributing to that. One, I'm not sure if their morale is terribly good to begin with. It's enough to maintain order, perhaps, but I think that is probably mostly due to the general's competence in his position. I think he is very good at what he does, and he has been able to maintain this siege for quite some time without a great break in his ranks. I think that speaks much to his ability to lead. But I think also perhaps, and I don't know this for sure, but I think they might be under some false pretexts. I don't know all of what has been told to them, but perhaps they have been led to believe that Kragadan slighted Molthun, and thus they have pride and honor in defending their own homeland. I'm not sure. I think it's a multitude of factors, but who knows? Those are my thoughts, at least.
So you think that they might believe different things that are not necessarily true?
Merely a theory. I have simply thought for these past 2 years trying to figure out why they would go to such lengths as this, and I think one of the only justifications that I have been able to think of myself is perhaps that they have been told something different. It's not unheard of for the foot soldiers in an army to be told one thing while the leaders know another.
Gideon nods a knowing nod. Yes, I'm aware. The Knights of Ozum, of which I was once part of their order, morale was often high, but that's because very many of them believed very, very close to their hearts that they were doing great good for not just Vigil, but all of the Inner Sea. They were defending against a great evil, and that Iomade had truly blessed each and every one of them.
A fellow knight, then. I imagine you could easily sympathize with them, perhaps. I think that the people of Malthun are a very honorable type. They put great value in their family, in their honor, in their pride as a nation. And, of course, they have their faults, but every nation has their faults. I think perhaps that their pride has simply been turned against them in a way, maybe.
I'm aware how that can happen. I must say, it's truly an honor to be able to talk with you as such a high-ranking officer here and what it is you do. Who is it that you answer to?
I answer directly to the Even-Handed Synod.
Oh, well then all the more am I honored by your presence and your company. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, it is an honor to meet with you as well, and I will say that for as long as you stay here, I will do my best to continue the defense of the upper portions, so you may rest assured that Kragadan is a safe place for you to stay for the time being.
Gideon will give him a salute.
He returns it.
Turns out that the salute of the Knights of Ozum is actually a very offensive gesture to the dwarves of Kragadan.
Yeah, the dwarves see that salute as like the Nazi salute, and they're like, oh my gosh, I can't
He draws his sword and immediately rushes at Gideon.
I have misjudged you, sir.
Man, y'all beating me up in chat.
So, yeah, that's all that he would tell you, and he would respectfully bow and then return to his duties in the fortress, overseeing the defense. Anything else on the surface that you wanted to look into?
The fist. Is that where we were having that conversation?
Yeah, you were just in the... So he came out of one of these fortresses here.
Gotcha.
To meet with you. The fist is, other than the fortresses that are built around it, it is just an open monument. You could walk around it. Again, for measurements, it would be like...
huge.
It's a big... It's more than half a mile wide, almost half a mile the other direction too. So walking around it would be like let me see. It'd be like 2 miles just walking around the thing. It's huge. And you could continue kind of touring the upper area.
Sarah, I also want to roleplay Gideon going to the Malthun camp, and I happen to have a cloak of human guys, and never in my life have I been more tempted.
No, please, no.
I would say that in all likelihood you would not be granted access through the outer wall.
Oh, I recognize. I'm not actually. Is that
they would open the front gate during a siege?
no?
That's why Kieran asked about dimensional travel.
Yeah. Dimension travel is here, then walk in from the side as part of a traveling caravan.
Yeah, dimension door into the camp so that they can steal the rings that allow them to dimension door into the tent.
Yeah. No.
What's the worst that could happen?
No part of it is reality, right? But in a fictional what if, it would be very fun to just walk around the Malthuni camp and interview him.
Yeah. So, anything else at the surface you'd like to do before going into research?
I don't think so. I think Kieran just wanted to see it and experience it, and I think he wants to come back up here at night to see what it's like at night.
Gideon is somewhat interested on the temperament of people that decide to make business down where they're technically at risk of getting hurt. I mean, there's plenty of room elsewhere.
Nobody's allowed in area. Well, they're allowed, but there are exceedingly few people who actually choose to stay in like the path market or the dirt. Nobody is in the dirt mark because that's outside the walls. But there's exceedingly few people. It's like a ghost town, the whole path market.
And there's no longer anyone outside. Like the siege lines are all the way up to the wall.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's nobody out there. The siege lines wouldn't be right up to the wall because they would be under fire from the defenders, but they have a healthy distance from the wall. But yeah.
Gotcha.
But yeah, you could go into Skyhome and you can see that there are definitely markets there. It's very slow, very quiet. The surface area, most of their trade is external. So they would be trading from outside nations. So the siege has caused the peak market and the Skyhome area to be pretty dead. There's not a whole lot of trade going on compared to the inner area, but their lives are being pretty much subsidized by the government. during the siege. So
they get paid to be here, like Alaska?
Well, it's not like their living expenses are covered, basically. Yes.
Gotcha.
Just all starve to death and die because they can't do business.
Because they do currently run caravans outside.
No, that's why it's so dead up here.
So they haven't had any external trade.
So that's why they've had to rely on those other benefits to kind of keep their livelihoods.
And if he just talks to a couple of random shopkeepers, making small talk and buying a gold item worth or two so that they don't get mad at him for his time, what's the general sentiment of citizens that decide to stay here versus go someplace more safe? Do they trust these inner walls here at Skyhome? Do they trust their commander?
You get the sense that they definitely trust their commander. Renzo is spoken of, like, he can't be spoken of highly enough. But you do think that you get the sense that there's a very strong, just natural stubbornness to it.
It just can't be stopped.
A lot of them, when you talk to them, and maybe you talk about how like Multhune has taken over Skyhome in the past and then had to retreat, and then they have retaken their homes, they kind of look at it as like a screw you thing, where it's just like every time they retake their home, it's like a sly grin, like, haha, we got you, like, we're back.
We'll take it harder. Yeah.
Like there seems to be almost like a stubborn obstinacy, like as if you thought you could do that type of a thing.
So the inconvenience of occasionally having to relocate as opposed to relocating once, they rather deal with it and just stay here.
I would say it's equal parts grumbling and equal parts pride. There's a big mix of that. Like they definitely feel the inconvenience and they definitely dislike the siege because they've been most affected by it. But they also are just like, who cares? Screw you guys. We're gonna stop. You can't stop us. So that's kind of what you're looking at there. So with that, we could go to the research. This would be the first day that you would be able to do your research if you wanted to. You could all meet up at the Royal Archives, and Carburton would show you the sections that would be most relevant to what you're looking into. So again, to reiterate, the research rules, basically, each of you individually can make a research check, and there are a number of different potential skills that you could use to make a research check. There is a set DC for this library, the Royal Archives, but because the Royal Archives is such an extensive collection, it actually gives you a bonus on any of your checks. So, number one, you have to be able to speak Dwarven, because almost all of the texts are written in Dwarven. So you have to be able to speak or read it, primarily read it. So you could expend spells, and as long as you could cover an 8-hour period where you would be able to read it, you're good. So that's the one requirement. You have to be able to read Dwarven. 2, the research checks that you can make are Knowledge Arcana, Engineering, History, or Planes. Those are the 4 knowledge checks that you can attempt as research checks. And the archives give you a +4 bonus on any of your knowledge checks just because they are so extensive with their knowledge and lore. And once you make your checks, I'll ask you questions about your ranks and all that stuff. Depending on the number of ranks you have in any of those skills determines the amount of damage you do to the library's knowledge points. If you have no ranks, or less than 5 ranks, I should say, you do 1d4 plus your intelligence modifier. If you have 5 to 9 ranks, you do 1d8. And if you have 10 or more, you'd have 1d12 plus your intelligence modifier. I have the knowledge points for the library here, and every time you hit a threshold, which is usually like a quarter, so like if it had 40 hit points, then once you hit 30, you'd get something. At 20, at 10, at 0, you'd get a additional bit of information. And once you've exhausted all of its knowledge points, that's all the information you learn. So with that, you can each roll a research check from one of those 4, or aid, whatever you want.
I will roll my own Knowledge Arcana.
I will roll my own Knowledge History.
I will aid a Knowledge History.
Who's got some good ranks?
Yeah, 18.
I've
got
6.
12 ranks in Knowledge Arcana. So.
One rank, 6 total.
Okay, I'm going to try to aid Kieran.
Well, the only thing is I don't have an intelligence modifier, so that's where I'm going to trip up, but
Okay, I literally have an intelligence modifier of 0, and I have 3 or less ranks in all knowledges. So I'm rolling a D4, or I'm going to help somebody get a D12. So
Okay, I'll roll my knowledge arcana, which has 12 ranks.
I'm going to try to help Kieran. So I auto aid.
Oh, nuts.
Wow.
Oh, what? I should have just rolled
I
my
rolled a natural 1.
Wow,
24.
Sarah.
darn Kieran.
Oh, that's so sad, but I get a +4.
You're thinking about how he saw the
Right?
sky and the clouds and
Yep.
rainbows. He was happy.
You get a +4, but unfortunately, none of you are able to do anything. Basically, you're looking through the royal archives, and again, this is a vast collection of lore and knowledge. You're going through, and you're looking at books, and you're like, "Oh, this title might work." You're looking through it, and it's just like a general history. And it's like, this isn't what we need. Put it back, and it's you spend that day researching, but you don't find much information.
Higher than DC 24, you're saying?
Yep.
Yeah, Kieran is going to spend like 2 hours and then he gets super bored and he'll still try, but he's not in
Effort,
it.
yeah, he's Here, read this, please, Kieran. It's like,
Yeah.
fine.
So that one check is our 8 hours of research.
For that day, you can redo this as many.
Oof.
You can do this as often as you want daily. Like,
So I guess that's the question. How long do we have before people's gear is done? Like my shield should be done in like 3 days.
so, if you all placed your orders on the first day that you were able to, it has been 4 days since then, and I think the longest period of time of commission was 12.
12? Somebody commissioned a 12-hour thing?
Yeah,
you literally
Is that not you, Josh?
You literally even said 12
Yeah,
days.
You said 12 days at the beginning of this session.
That's why I was mocking you, because you were like, I was contemplating even doing a 10-day
Right.
one, and you immediately like,
Right.
12 days.
Oh, that's right.
Listen to the outrage in his voice at first, and only to realize that it is in fact him.
Oran did 12 days.
Really inconsiderate, guys. Really inconsiderate.
It was the shield, because it's 1,000 per day is all you can do.
Yeah. Yeah. My stuff takes 6 days.
Yeah,
So
it feels like a dingus now, don't they?
If you guys wanted to wait till your stuff was done, then you could make a series of checks. You have a number of days available to you.
Well, so we can do 8 hours of this. I mean, in theory, because we have the whole day, could we just spend, maybe not today, but 8 hours tomorrow doing the research and then spending a little time doing some investigation as well?
Yeah, if you want to go in, that's fine. It's just up to how much information you want before you go in. That's all.
Oh, so we can't. So as soon as we go to investigate, then that's it?
Well, you don't know. You might be able to come back out. There might be something in there that you get stuck with. You don't know. Nobody's been in there for 2 years, so you just don't know what you're walking into. That's the only thing.
yeah, and if I know anything about adventure paths, that's kind of where we're gonna finish out the book, probably.
They're all mimics. It's all mimics in the reliquary.
Yeah.
Nothing but mimics.
Yeah, so
So it's,
I guess
it's
we'll
whatever you want to
continue
do.
to do research then, I suppose.
Yeah, so we can go the next day if you'd like.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Ooh,
oh,
that's-
no, it's a 9.
Wow. I'm gonna aid again, but there's no point. Oh my gosh.
So at 11 for Oran, plus 4, 15. Okay, here we go. Knowledge Arcana. 17. That's a
jeez.
3.
It's not going to do
He
it.
is still not feeling it.
Oh my gosh,
goodness.
he's our best hope.
Turns out knowledge checks are the weak point of this party.
And it's got to be one of those 4 knowledges, right?
Yeah, it's got to be one of those 4.
Oh dear. It's going to take us all 12 days just to roll above a 3.
So just so you know, you can take 20 on these. They are knowledge checks.
What?
What?
Don't forget that.
What?
No, Jessup can.
Oh, Jessup can.
Oh.
I mean, I know I can, but in theory, I just took it as like I'm doing one check versus that's taking a 20 for 8 hours.
No, but I mean, as a bard, you can take 20 on a knowledge check.
Oh,
for free.
not my lore master. Okay, well, after today, I'm probably going to start doing that because this is not going anywhere. So Jessup's going to get some coffee and buckle down.
So again, the second day.
All right, Jessup's taking a freaking 20 for my 1d4, boys.
Yeah, so on the third day of research, you can go again.
So Jessup's taking his 20 to make it a 44 engineering.
Can he roll religion? I thought that was not available.
Oh. Is religion not one of them?
Arcana, engineering.
Oh, you're
history,
correct. Sorry.
science.
Okay, so 20. What was that? 30.
30.
All right, I got a 30 with or 32 with the library.
All right. So Jessup got a 40 something. Oran, with Gideon's aid, managed to get a, what did you say? 30?
30.
30. And then Kieran, on his own, managed to get a 32. This time you all succeeded.
Yay!
Wow.
So yes. So does anybody have 5 or more ranks in their respective check?
I do.
Yes.
Okay, so I heard. So Oran has 5 or more ranks in history.
Yes.
Does anybody have 10 or more ranks?
Yes.
Okay, so Kieran, you will be rolling 1d12 plus your intelligence. Oran, you will be rolling 1d8 plus your intelligence. Jessup, you will be rolling 1d4 plus your
All right. 1d12 plus 0. 4.
4.
1d8 plus 0.
Do we all have intelligence as a...
Oh,
Yes.
Oh,
no.
Lord.
Nailed it.
All right. Jessup's a 1d4 plus 0. Huzzah! Yeah,
You
okay, I
got
got a
the
4.
same thing as my d12, which is garbage.
Okay. So you feel good progress today. You haven't hit the next threshold. You're very close. So I won't be reading you the paragraph of information that I have, but you do make progress. You start reading through the books and you feel like you're getting closer to the section that has the information you're looking for. But we will have to go to the very next day before. So
Goodness.
day
So
4
at this
of
point,
research.
I probably have my glaive and my commissioned item, I think, right?
This would be the 7th total day, I think.
Oh, okay. So I don't have my commissioned item yet. I think that was 8
You were here
days.
for 3 days before the meeting,
Yeah.
and then it's been 4 days after, so 7 days.
But my glaive is now a +2.
Assuming that the cost was only 6,000, yes.
Yes, it was.
Yes, so Jessup gets his bow as well.
All right.
Pew.
All right, now we just have to wait for Gideon.
Sorry,
stuff.
I'm
It's
very
fine.
sorry. I apologize.
Well, we're not really making headway on the knowledge check, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, this is fine. All right, well, no, it's another day I can't help.
Oh, 10. Okay. Mine is another natural one. Oh my
Jessup's taking a 20.
This is
Okay.
just what people listen to our sessions for.
Jessup, you can roll your 1d4 again.
Ha! 3.
All right. And with that, you do hit your first knowledge threshold.
Yay! Jessup.
So what you learn at the first breakthrough is the deepest levels of Kragadan were a bustling city street in the Sky Citadel's earliest years. But after a disaster struck and elemental horrors rampaged through the community, the founding clans rebuilt the wreckage into what is now known as Vault Way. Much of the relevant information is missing, lost in the chaos following the Shining Crusade and the Rending, despite Kragadan's distance from the Five Kings Mountains. Because of this, modern scholars and historians still debate the exact contents of the Reliquary of Ascension. Today, Vault Way is rarely visited except by bankers and funerary processions, but the adamantine-lined doors of the Reliquary of Ascension remain a key fixture in the lowest level. So that is the surface information that you learn at this threshold. You will have to dig deeper for the more specific information.
I bet the adamantine doors puts them at bay, puts the creatures in there at bay. So we should probably have some of those weapons.
You can't make an existing weapon adamantine, right? You have to just have a new... Okay, that's
my
not going to happen.
knowledge, because that's like the base material.
Bummer. Can you just like coat it?
Can you get adamantine arrows?
Yes, they're pretty expensive, but yeah,
Jessup's got some monies.
that won't be a problem.
And isn't it at a certain enhancement level you just count as adamantine?
At a +5,
+5?
I think, or +4. Planar might be +5. I might have them backwards. I think adamantine is the highest.
Which one is cold iron?
+3.
Okay.
Does like greater magic weapon, when Oran casts that, when he gets the enhancement bonus that way, does that count?
Don't know. I'm almost thinking probably not, but maybe. I'd have to look into it.
Oh, it's been 7 days. Okay. Kieran would give diamond dust to somebody. Can somebody cast restoration on me
That is true. Yep. You could have.
so I can get rid of my negative level? Because that's also affecting my research somehow.
Sure. What level spell is that?
It's pretty high. It's like a level 5.
I think it's a 5th level spell, but Kieran bought the material component for it, so.
Yeah, so it would just cost you a level 5 spell.
Okay, that's fine. We're not planning to go there today, right?
No.
Okay, then that's fine.
It is super appreciated. Super
Alright.
appreciated.
Yeah, you can get rid of your energy drain now.
Okay. I had purchased diamond dust for the party, but I will save that and just spend 1,000 of my personal funds for that.
So that will bring us to the 5th day of research, the 8th total day here in Kragadan. And you can see if you can get lucky and break through a second threshold here of 4.
Hey, that one might get me.
Ooh, that's a maybe.
23. Oh, 21. All right. Knowledge Arcana.
Well, no, that's an 8
20.
for...
Garbage. Natural 6. This is
But you get a +4 bonus. Maybe a 25 will do it.
25.
29 for mine.
Yes, we have a 29, a 25,
Yes, 25.
and then a natural 20 from Jessup. The 25 will fail.
Oh.
The 29 will exactly succeed.
Oh.
Wow.
So, Oran, that'll be a 1d8 from you and a 1d4 from Jessup. Another 1 on the d8.
I'm sorry, dude.
Love it.
Yay, 3 again.
Wow.
Okay. You do make some more progress. You haven't hit the next threshold. There are 4 thresholds for this library. You haven't hit the second one, but you are close still. And I will say, I don't know if I recalled it before, if you have a spell or effect that can boost your skill for the entire 8 hours, I would probably allow you to use it.
Oh, dang it.
Like heroism.
Right. I'm in it. Idiot,
I don't
sorry.
think heroism would last 8 hours.
You could cast it multiple times.
If Jason would allow it, I could, in theory, I believe, use my Inspire Competence with Omnipresent Mentor for Kieran to give him my bonus for because it's for the day.
Yeah, because that lasts.
It's until
The whole day.
It lasts the whole day, so it's until I rest or I presumably give that to somebody else.
Okay.
I should have did that from the get-go because it gives
It would give him a +4 bonus at this level.
+5 now with
Plus
my
5
cool
bonus.
Sikke.
So yeah, you could do that and boost his check.
Dang it. Sorry, sir. I should have done that.
That's okay. I am not rolling any better, so it's not your fault.
Well, that yesterday would have made a difference.
Probably would have done more than a nat 1 twice on damage.
We're just not a party built for research.
Day 6 of research, Jessup can do his omnipresent mentor. Seeing that having some difficulty doing the research, he can try to help out a little bit.
So I'll spend 4 rounds of Bardic Performance to give Kieran a boost to Knowledge Arcana.
All right, so +9 to this roll.
Yes.
Natural
Oh.
20.
There you go.
You didn't even
Okay.
need it. You
Seriously,
crushed it.
I just needed that little boost, Jessup. That's what put me over the edge.
Kieran, no. You're reading the book like that map, upside down.
Upside down.
You're making it more difficult than it needs to be.
He's like, funnily enough, though, dwarven upside down it still makes sense, just not the way you think it will.
So that'll be a D12 and a D4.
And do I get 2 D12 because I criticaled?
I don't recall reading anything about criticals in the research rules. Okay. In addition to these base amounts, rolling a natural 20 acts as a critical threat. If you can confirm the critical hit, the damage is doubled.
All right, so 32 plus 9. Do I still have the competence? It would be at least a 36.
So the knowledge
Maybe
point
a
reduction
41.
is doubled. So does that mean you do 24?
That
I
was
think
sick.
so. Yeah.
Okay.
Do it.
Oh, it's
So-
just doubled?
Yeah.
It's not rolled
That's what it
twice?
says.
Yeah, baby.
Yes, Sarah made up for it in one day.
So on, what did I say? This was the 6th day of research?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
You guys are all reading around in the 6th day of research. Oran and Gideon, you're, again, having a hard time finding stuff. Kieran, with kind of the help that Jessup gave you, you're going around, and it's like every single book you pick out is like the exact book that you need, because your roll alone got through all of the rest of the knowledge points in one check. So you obliterated everything, and I'll just read you everything here at this point.
Well, at least it wasn't like the first roll, so we didn't trivialize it because...
No, you guys definitely struggled to do it, but that one check was rather phenomenal.
We did it before. Gideon needs his 12-day thingy, too.
Yeah, a natural 20 followed by a 12 on a 12, so yeah, that'll do it. Okay, at the second knowledge threshold, you learn that the elemental horrors came from a passage called the Stone Road. Vaultway was originally constructed to secure an artifact called the Onyx Key, which was responsible for opening the Stone Road. The Reliquary of Ascension only later grew into a repository of knowledge, artifacts, and honored dead related to the quest for Sky. Over the many millennia, references to the Stone Road began to disappear, or were used merely as metaphors for Kragadan's quest for Sky rather than a literal magical path. The third threshold, you learn that the disaster caused by the Onyx Key occurred over 9,000 years ago. Kragadan's king at the time was a contemporary of the legendary Kragadan himself. It was by the king's command that the dwarves began researching and experimenting with the Onyx Key. The details of their experiments you don't find immediately, but there is mention to something known as a sardonyx shard being the focus of their research. And the final threshold here, you learn that the king who commanded the experimentation of the Onyx Key grew desperate after the disaster. Under threat from the orcs below, the orcs above and the Durgar below, and now the elementals from within that had come from this artifact that he had begun research with, he took drastic measures to continue his stable rule. He employed alchemy and arcane magic, and some references suggest blood sacrifice to extend his reign far beyond the normal lifespan for a dwarf. Records are sparse, but it seems that some centuries after this event, his people revolted, and he called down unspeakable violence upon them. Accounts say that he abdicated the throne and ordered his own name be stricken from Kragadan's records. He then retreated into Vaultway, into the Reliquary of Ascension, never to be seen again. So that is some information that you learn from the Royal Archives. On that day, when Carburton is with you, he kind of speaks, and you can see there's a very downcast expression on his face, and he says, "It seems that the blind spots in my research are bigger than I thought. I can do nothing but apologize for my ineptitude. I'm sure my father would have known all of this information offhand."
Don't worry about it, buddy. There was a lot of books here. We struggled definitely for a few days, and we were dedicated just doing that.
Yes, I've spent the past 3 years researching the books here in the reliquaries and the Royal Archives, and researching the artifacts in Vaultway, but perhaps I grew arrogant. I thought that I knew more than I truly did, and this has proven to me that I still have much left to learn.
I don't know about that. I think sometimes you just need a fresh set of eyes to look at things. It's possible you had seen this information before, but just passed over it.
What Kieran said, we kind of was, we at least had a few of the extra puzzle pieces they had to put together. You were kind of missing some. You didn't really have a direction to start with.
Yes, well, perhaps that's true, but at the very least we've learned quite a bit. This artifact that you mentioned, I was trying to find anything in my memory that matched it, but with all this it makes sense. This tower that you spoke of must be made by this Onyx Key. I don't know what this reference is to the Sardonyx Shard, but perhaps that's something that controls it in some way. Maybe that's how they use it to link up how they get to places. I'm not sure yet. But it was definitely here, and it does seem that that was the artifact that was stolen. So if the Iron Fang Legion has it now, then it would make sense that they were the ones who must have taken it to begin with. And it definitely seems that there was great research done on it several thousands of years ago. The king at the time, it's interesting that his name was stricken from the records. If he retreated into the Reliquary of Ascension and was never seen again, perhaps he brought information with him there. Maybe there's more information we could glean inside. I will continue my research here. Perhaps I can learn more, but I think at this point perhaps the next step would be the reliquary itself.
Now, you don't think that he's still down there in some form or fashion, do you?
It's hard to say. My first thought would be that, hardly anyone could live 9,000 years, but given what we've learned about him, this definitely could be something that would cause a soul to come back as an undead.
That's what I'm afraid of.
Even if he comes back as an undead, perhaps that means if he's a ghost, perhaps we could even speak with him, and he could give a first-hand account of everything.
Right, but on the flip side, maybe he's something worse than a ghost, and maybe he doesn't really want to talk.
Indeed. That is something that we will have to prepare for. Again, I will continue research. If I find anything more useful, I will make sure to relay it to you. But perhaps you should go into it with that in mind as a possibility. We can't be too cautious.
So, I guess, I don't know if you guys are good with it, but maybe we'll want to wait another day now that we kind of know what we might be up against to prepare ourselves. If we got to find some more elementals. Kieran, I don't know if you got any more of that resist magic, and then potentially, like you said, we're on some adamantite weaponry of sorts.
The resist magic?
Resist energy? Oh, there's no resist magic? You don't have anything just completely... Oh, I thought you could do that, Kieran.
I have spell resistance, if that's what you're talking about.
No, I was talking about like the resistance to the fire and stuff. Sorry, my bad.
Oh, right.
My brain's a little shot right now.
Well, and I'm also thinking if, not that we know this for sure, but if there's a chance that there's an undead down there, perhaps even a ghost, if he's not friendly, maybe we want to pick up something to help with that.
The dude is practicing blood magic. Do you think that he's friendly? He's on the verge of, necromancy. He could be a lich down there.
I don't even want to think about it, but it sounds like we have to go down there to get more information, so I'd rather be prepared for something that may not happen than the other way around.
Gideon, how long until you get all your little gear and upgrades?
What day is it, Jason?
So that was the 6th day of research, which would be the 9th total day. So there would be 3 more days until you get that particular item. 1 more day for anything that was 10k. I don't know if anybody had 10k stuff.
Nope, I opted to get the other thing, Jace.
Okay. So then the only item that would still be pending would be that 1 shield for another 3 days.
Which he can go without. It only costs me 3 AC if we decide to go early.
Is there any way that you can buy another shield in the meantime to be able to use?
He has one.
Oh, okay, not bad then.
That's why I said it's only going to cost me 3 AC as opposed to 6 AC.
Well, I say we rest up, brainstorm, and then we go in tomorrow.
Right, do some final preparations mentally and see what we see in there, I suppose.
Oh no, I'm afraid I'm never going to get that shield back.
Yeah, I don't know.
If Jace will allow it, I'll just take the +3 if I go to the shop and tell him to forget the last bit.
I will say, if the fortification bonus is the final bit, so you had a +1 shield and you wanted it to be a
I had a +2 shield.
+2 shield, and you wanted it to be a +3 fortification shield, light fortification shield.
Light fortification. Yep.
So the +3 would have been done by now. The fortification is what they are currently working on. You could tell them to stop midway, but I would say that you'd have to restart the fortification process if you did that. Like if you resubmitted it, they'd have to start that part of it over again.
Right, if we doubled back.
And I kind of feel like you'd still have to pay for their services.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it, Gideon. Let's be real here. If it's an undead of sorts, it's going to hit you with touch attacks. That AC ain't going to mean squat.
Okay.
It's going to be great if we're so prepped to fight undead and then it's something completely different.
No, nothing's undead. It's all vermin.
Oozes.
Vermin oozes.
Vermin oozes. Oh, that's horrible.
Vermin ooze swarms.
Although that's a fair point, though. If we're going into like a place that's been shut up, there probably are vermin down there.
Vermin ooze swarms, even.
You know what? Maybe let's just prep for every single thing that we could possibly fight.
Prep for every conceivable enemy in the bestiary.
I already have 3 doses of that, so if we run into vermin,
all right,
we'll
Josh, you're just making stuff up at this point. Like this is ridiculous. He's just quickly adding this stuff in there.
No,
and
this is quantity 3. I already had that on my character sheet.
Yeah.
I've had vermin repellent since day 1.
That's
of
convenient.
Gideon's character existence.
Convenient.
Josh just goes through the equipment, and if he sees that it doesn't have a weight to it, he's like, I'll take 3 of that.
Yeah, right.
Stop it! You shut up right now!
It's so true,
It doesn't weigh anything. What could hurt?
When we met him, he had the biggest backpack on. Doesn't weigh anything, but it still takes up space.
He's like Santa Claus, and he's like, nah, guys, there's like nothing in here.
He's just running around with a backpack and his underwear with a javelin picking berries.
Turns out Gideon is deathly afraid of spiders, so that's why he has vermin repellent.
Yeah. No, guys, stop, okay? I don't have as many weapons as I did. I learned from those days, okay? Not everyone needs a cloak of many weapons. But you're not going to take my alchemical items from me, okay? I love those.
Oh, dear.
All right. So,
I don't want to do this, Jason. Can we skip this?
all right.
This
yep,
little bit here. Let's just skip this.
So,
like-
moving on to book 5. So, you
Yep,
guys,
I'm good with that.
Jace, we can figure out later what we'll do with my equipment, but I'm okay to defer to the party as far as how we move. I'm just worried that if I don't get that shield back, that we might not go back to Kragadan.
I mean,
you're
I'll-
never leaving Kragadan.
That's technically true.
You also could have paid the extra 5,000 that was asked of you to rush it.
Yeah, that's true if I had that. But yeah. But yeah, that's fine.
Did you get some more repellents?
No, I already bought all those. We have 3. 3 will be enough.
Yeah, that fourth person's screwed, though.
That's Jessup.
All right, I'll get one more. I think they cost like 10 gold.
Yeah.
Okay. I find one.
So, yes. You guys, on that 9th day, you get this wealth of information and you decide that you're prepped. You kind of know what you might be going into, and you rest for that day. And so you wake up on the 10th day that you are in Kragadan. If there were any items of 10,000 gold or less that you commissioned, they would be ready. Otherwise, you guys wake up in the morning and you get situated, you get around, you get prepared, and you make your way towards the Reliquary of Ascension. And I have 2 things that I'll say. 1, we can figure out any quick last-minute items you want to buy for preparations between sessions again. And 2, as you guys are preparing your spells for your entrance into the Reliquary, keep in mind that you are now level 13.
Hey, let's go.
So, do we have access to the new goodies that we get?
Yep, you wake up
No.
at level 13.
It's like a few.
So you will be entering the Reliquary of Ascension as 13th level characters. Yes. So you
Let's
can prepare as
go.
such.
Oh, that's
Yay!
exciting.
Let's go HP.
Yes, everybody can roll their hit points, and I can get my chart out so I can track it here.
All right, now I'm going to put some ranks and knowledges so I don't get picked on by certain
7.
individuals.
And
No, you
whenever
can do whatever you
use
want. Hey, let's go.
them- Okay, so character progression. Oran rolled a 3 on the die. Okay, let me put that down.
Do I get to re-roll a 3?
Gideon rolled a 7 on the die. 1 second. Jessup rolled a 4 on the die. And Kieran rolled a 3 on the die. And yes, D12s reroll 1s, 2s, and 3s.
2.
They also reroll 2s.
Okay. 8.
8.
I'll
That's
take
pretty
it.
good. That's pretty
That's
good.
not bad.
All right. And there are no favored class bonuses for Kieran or Gideon. Oran and Jessup, you guys can tell me what you'd like to do, but both of you have been pretty consistent. Oran has always done hit points, and Jessup has always done his class bonus.
I'll more than likely do my class bonus. If that changes, Jason, I'll let you know.
Yep, I'll put that in for now, but let me know if that's different.
Yeah, that's what Orange can do. Why break the
I've
cycle?
updated here, and I'll actually put the link in the chat if you guys actually want to look at what the current progression for your characters' roles and stuff has been. We will talk about your level up at the start of next session, and then we will go right into the Reliquary of Ascension. But for now, we'll see you guys next week.